everybody. Hello. How are you? And welcome to the small celebration stream. Yay, 500. What are you all doing? Why am I here? Why is any of us here? Like, quite frankly. No, thank you so much. I think this is just wonderful, and I know it seems you see people with like hundreds of thousands of subscribers like I'm going crazy over 500. It's just when I started, I was mainly doing it just to record a place for the debates that I was doing. I honestly had no intention of starting a channel to try and do anything with it. It was just, hey, maybe I'll do a channel to just throw these things on, and you know that I've reached 500 is actually pretty momentous for me. So I want to thank everybody, because you guys have been beyond kind, beyond supportive, and I appreciate all of your feedback and all of your comments and all of the time you take to watch what I've got to say. It's really humbling that people are actually interested in what I've got to say, and you know, I'm going to continue to try and do my best and promote atheism and secularism, secular humanism as a very reasonable way to approach the world and to evaluate the world. Maynard, thank you so much. You know, you've been fantastic. All the comments and all the support has been amazing. Nana Lou, hi. Timothy's Winton, thank you. 1,000 might be far off. I mean, I hope so. I'm baffled as how I got here in the first place, so I don't know how I'm going to get to 1,000. I don't know how I arrived here. So, you know what? And it doesn't really matter. What'll happen is what'll happen. You know, I just have to do what I enjoy doing. I think. I don't know. People talk about algorithms and, you know, setting up these things, and it baffles me. I'm just going to debate. I'm going to just be myself. It's the Aussie accent. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Actually, most people think I'm English, so that's actually not true, Wilberforce, because most people think I'm English. But thanks, Wilberforce. It's good to see you. And Caterpillar, you mean so much to me. You are a wonderful person. I love to hear from you every time. I really appreciate you. Big Bad Mama, you're fantastic. I love your videos, and I love your sense of humor. It's fantastic. I love to hear from you. Casalea, welcome. Thank you so much. Lots of love to you as well. Zach, thank you so much on the congrats. Yeah, I'm really stoked. I'm really happy to be here. Yahoo, welcome. I think you're a new subscriber, so welcome to the channel. Lots of love for Yahoo there. It was good seeing you on CJ. Yeah, I've never been into CJ Cox's room before. I didn't know what to expect. I've never engaged with him before. I'd seen a couple of his debates, but he was very cordial, very polite, very yeah, he was great to talk to. Actually, I was pleasantly, I mean, not really surprised, because I have seen him before, but it was a really good engagement that I felt that he was being honest and open and upfront and respectful, polite, all the things that you really hope for when you have a conversation with someone with a different worldview. And I hope I gave him the same courtesy. Oh yeah, the panel with Scala Fiction. Yeah, that was actually a lot of fun with Chris Maldi and Scala Fiction and all those people. That was good fun, Wilberforce. But thank you so much for joining me here, and yay, I got to 500, or we got to 500, because yeah, what am I going to make of this community? I have no idea. I hope somebody tells me. Somebody tell me what to do. I've got no idea what I'm doing. I think this can be summed up by that meme of the dog at the computer saying, I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, really. Why impractical conditions? Because few minutes ago there was tilers and workmen working outside, so I chose exactly the right time to go live, as I always do. I always choose the most perfect time to go live every time. you can rely on it. Um, but yeah, you would think so, Wilberforce. You'd think I would have more of an idea. You'd expect so, but no, 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 not really. Um, you know what? But today I did want to do an Ask Me Anything, and I really mean that. Now, I may not answer every question if it's too personal, but I really want to be open about who I am and who I came from. And so, if you do want to, I'll talk about me, because I've interviewed people, and I sort of talk about where they came from, and what they went through, and stuff like that. Um, I wanna sort of share who I am and where I came from, if it's of interest to anybody. Hi, Pure Aussie Gold, good to see you. G'day, mate. Fantastic. Yeah, the CJ chat was actually really civil and nice. I was just saying that to Yahoo. Oh no, Timothy, you're gonna hate me. You're gonna hate me, mate. Eagles or Dockers? I don't watch football at all. I don't. I don't. Um, I don't really get into football. I am northern suburbs though, so presumably that would make me an Eagles fan. I don't know. Um, so I'm so sorry, mate. It's not my thing, and I'm so sorry about that. Um, Carol, so good to see you. I love to see you, Carol. It's so good. Do I enjoy barbecue shrimp? Yeah, yeah, sure. Yeah, yeah. I mean, we call it prawns, but sure. So shrimp is native to America and some other countries. We have prawns, which are a slightly different species. So the whole thing about throwing another shrimp on the barbie, like seriously, that's the worst marketing, because shrimp don't exist in Australia. Bad marketing, bad Paul Hogan, and one of my friends from Discord is going to take great exception to me hassling Paul Hogan. Agnostic pagan mum, Jesus was a pagan too. So good to see you. And I dropped into the Afro-Humanist stream before this. She was running. It was so strange. It was so weird. So I drop into the Afro-Humanist stream, and she's doing a review on one of my videos. It was crazy. It was sort of like, wow. And she's amazing. Does really good stuff. And I'm gonna drop a link for her in here. So check her out sometime. She has a very unique perspective. So I'm going to drop a link for the Afro-Humanist in there. Yeah, and she was sort of talking about the interview I had with G-Man, which was baffling and bewildering and crazy. Like that was on the non sequitur show. So that was a weird one. That was my first G-Man experience. I don't know if you've ever seen G-Man. It is an experience when you meet him for the first time. He's one of those characters. Yeah, so that was interesting, but it was so cool to go into a person that you respect, like the Afro-Humanist, who I greatly respect, and see her reviewing one of your appearances. Yeah, it was Steve on with me at that point. So this was only a couple of months ago, kind of thing. Yeah, Spatchcock's got one review, right, Wilberforce, and so it's strange to see these people that you really respect running your performances or arguments or debate performances. It's surreal, and I really appreciate it. I really do. Oh, thank you, Jorge. Thank you so much. And Jorge's been around for ages, and I love him dearly. He's fantastic. He's one of the people I've met on Amy's stream, and shout out to Amy Newman. Some of the people on there are just truly beautiful people, just gorgeous people. They have been so kind to me and so supportive, and I want to thank everybody that has encouraged me to go forward. And Maya, another person who's just a beautiful person and really encouraged me. Thank you so much. Maya. I really appreciate it. Every time I talk to you, it's wonderful. Um, so I wanted to talk about sort of where I came from, because I ask people a lot, like sort of how they came, like grew up, and sort of the religion that they're born into and things like that. So I really wanted to share what I've been through in my life, if you would like. Um, I was born in Perth, where I live, so I've traveled, but I've never moved anywhere else. I've stayed in this city, and this city is um, it's really nice. It's a really nice place. It's the world's largest country town. It's got a country town feeling with all the negatives and positives that has, but it also is a major city. Um, so growing up, I was born into sort of a nominally Protestant household. They basically said they were Protestant, but they weren't. They were completely secular. Didn't even have a concept of what God was. Very much into my primary school years, so 7, 8, 9, 10 kind of thing. Um, and my parents were, my father was an electrician, and my mother was a genius. She was literally a genius. She was part of Mensa, and incredibly the smartest person I've ever met in my entire life. And she believed in things that weren't true. Like, she was a new age person that believed in, um, you know, crystals and aromatherapy and astrology, and just all of these things that were not demonstrably true. Um, and Richard Madsen, thank you for joining me. I think I've sort of been over a bit of this with you before, but so growing up in there, I sort of came out with this idea that these mystical things were practically true. In practice, not nearly, but in practice, were actually true. That you could tell what a person's personality is like from when they were born, or oh, thank you so much, Richard. I really appreciate it, mate. Thank you. Um, and doing tarot cards and things like that, right? Like tarot cards could predict how your life would come out. You would interpret and gain a glimpse of the future, and how things would play out, because at that point I had no idea about critical thinking, or sort of confirmation bias, and things like that. Now, I probably grew up with that all the way up until like about 15, 16. And don't forget, my mother was a certified genius, but she still believed in this stuff very firmly. She probably rubbed off a lot on me, and sort of this kind of beliefs that I had. Now, she was suffering from some sort of ailment. She kept getting tired, kept getting no energy, really to the point of almost collapsing kind of thing. And she took every remedy under the sun. She tried crystals and aromatherapy, and I will vividly remember her crushing up scorpions to put in a drink. I like Chinese medicine kind of thing. It was bark and grass, and just horrible stuff that she choked down, because she thought it would be how to solve this problem that she was having, and sort of a friend of hers convinced her to go see a specialist, to go see this person that they knew were really good. And she was diagnosed with celiac disease. And that story to me is when I started to think, hey, this might all be bullshit. Like, this didn't work, and would never have worked. Oh, Michael, so glad you're here, mate. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. But that's sort of what triggered me to go, hey, all of this astrology. And then I sort of well, agnostic pagan mum, the celiac disease is sort of an allergy to wheat. So when you have gluten that's found in wheat, it's not wheat, it's the gluten in wheat and a lot of other products. The cilia in the stomach, which absorbs nutrients, sort of has an allergic reaction, gets paralyzed, and then you can't absorb other nutrients. So it basically makes you tired because you can't absorb what you need to absorb. It's not in some way going to be cured by bark and scorpions and, you know, eye of rat kind of thing. That isn't going to help here. And that's when I started to realize that some of the beliefs that I had were completely unfounded. Like there is no evidence for uh, aromatherapy or Chinese medicine or any of these things to actually work. There's nothing behind them. Even things like acupuncture, it has no solid evidence for it. It can be relaxing, like something you enjoy can be relaxing, but that doesn't mean that it's actually effective. So yeah, and workforce, I agree. Intelligent. Look, just because you're intelligent or clever or whatever you want to say, doesn't mean you can't have some erroneous beliefs. That is not a metric of you know, your intelligence. It's just not. There are some Christians and some theists and some Buddhists and you know, Islamic people. They're incredibly intelligent, but they believe things without sort of a demonstrable proof. And I think it's important to remember that. And I think that's what it also did for me. The idea that no matter how smart you are, you can still be wrong about stuff. It's fine. Everybody's wrong. That's fine. So I guess before that, going through school and when I grew up, I was kind of, so I didn't know it at the time. I was only diagnosed later, but I am autistic. I am on the spectrum, and I used to have a big problem with it. I'm okay with it now. I'm good with that. That's okay. And I probably had ADD as well, or I did, but that was undiagnosed too. So I was probably an sort of very curious kid. I was very curious about things and sort of very unable to work within the social norms. So, of course, you know, going through a school system in the West, I was bullied mercilessly and beaten up a lot and sort of spent all my time with no friends and by myself, sitting by myself, generally thinking about things a lot. And yeah, it was a pretty terrible time. Though I'm not bringing this up to sort of, you know, sort of say, hey, don't be sorry for me. I feel like I have I was given, or I have a real care for people that are sort of on the fringes of society, that are sort of downtrodden and misunderstood. I think that a lot of the time these bullies, they pick on people, and that's something that annoys me about Christianity, that it says, hey, this is the cool kids club, this is the special club, and all you people, you're gonna be in hell, go away, not part of our special club. And it's that ostracism, and that you have to believe what we believe in order to be part of our special club, that really annoys me. That kind of does annoy me. I don't like bullies. I think I've made that sort of clear. I really don't. But going through that situation, I was pretty much a very socially distant person. I guess I still have problems isolating myself and being apart from everybody. Part of my sort of effort to be more social has been to go out on YouTube and put myself out there and say, hey, you know, here I am. This is me. I've got things that I can say. Disagree, go for it. I really would like people to disagree with me. And why do you disagree? That's so fascinating. I really find it interesting when people sort of have different viewpoints. Oh, hello, Godless Girl. Welcome. I think I've only met you once. Pixie, welcome. But yeah, going up from high school, I sort of worked in menial jobs, worked in as a store person, like sort of in a storehouse, doing things. I worked night shift a lot. So I worked for a while in a bakery at night shift, doing stuff, packing up stuff to go out to stores mostly. Um, I eventually got a job doing a directory assistance on the phone, so people would call up. I'd give them addresses and phone numbers when they used to have that. When ages ago, when you couldn't just Google it. So I worked there for a few years. I then moved on to a internet company. It wasn't at the time, but it's the now Australia's second biggest internet company. And I found that I was really good at understanding systems, complex systems, things like how the sort of modem is working with the computer network, which is working with this. I found that I was really good at it. So I spent many years there. I then worked for the largest internet provider in Australia, and spent many, many years there, doing a whole wide range of things, technical support, even some sales on the back of that. I worked in, but the big thing that I worked in, and I didn't realize it at the time, excuse me, was complaints. People would come in with complaints, and I would fix them however I could. It gave me a lot of patience for things. People, the state that they were in when their internet goes down and things fall in a heap, you can probably imagine that they're upset. They're really upset. They are, ready to tear their hair out, upset, and being able to handle that was something that I got a lot of training in. So people that say, "Hey, I don't understand how you remain calm or how you deal with these people," just remember I've had a lot of training in doing exactly that. It isn't just something I've magically acquired, right? Like, don't think that at all. I get angry and upset the best of them, but I think that training for some reason has crossed over well into talking with people, and I do like talking with people, and I think that you've got to remember that the person's not angry at you. The person's angry at something else, because they might be angry at what you've said. They might be angry at what's triggered within them. I've thought a lot about anger. I think as I was younger and coming out from school, and I was very downtrodden and very beaten and bullied, and felt a lot of hostility at the world. I was very angry. So one of the things that I came to realize was that anger isn't a thing. There's no such thing as anger. How old am I? I'm 46. You're 84. Oh, that's amazing, pure Aussie gold. Yes, yes, you used to have Westnet. I worked for them. So yeah, I worked for them when IINet took Westnet over. So I worked for IINet. They took over Westnet, worked for Westnet, sort of training, or sort of as a almost like a student exchange. They sent staff over to us, we sent staff over to them. I was one of the people sent over to sort of get them up to date with how IINet did things. 84 model. Gotcha. That makes more sense. Okay. So I was about to say kudos, man. 84 and still rocking the YouTube. That's awesome. But no, 37. That makes more sense. But anger doesn't exist. Anger is sort of this thing that is not a thing. Frustration, anger. Basically, what it is frustration and anger is a response to some other feeling. It's a sort of a secondary emotion. It's that evolution, fight or flight kicking in, right? So really what anger is it's fear or pain sometimes, I guess, but mostly it's fear. So whenever I start to get angry, I'm asking myself, what am I afraid of? What's actually scaring me enough to make me angry? And you'll usually find that you're actually afraid of being belittled, or you're afraid of somebody not listening to you, or that that something's going to happen. I really think that anger is something that flows on from another emotion, and is very rarely useful. I guess if sort of evolution, you're in a fight, or you're in an actual situation where you do need to defend yourself or something. Um, it's probably useful, but not so much anymore. So yeah, that's my story. I guess how did I get into YouTube was that a while ago, my mother died of breast cancer, and my father died of a heart condition, probably within a few months of one another, which was a bit of a shock. They were divorced, but it was still completely unrelated to one another. But they both died, and before she died, my mother said that she wanted me to, I guess, get out of the rat race and do something that I really love, and that's networks, computers, and systems. As I said, I'm very good with complex systems. For some reason, I just have the mind for it. So yeah, it's just something that I promised that I would do. So I went to uni, had mixed results, was diagnosed with ADD and on the autism spectrum, so ASD, and sort of in order to cope with some of the things I've been going through, I was going to therapy to sort of talk about my feelings on being on the spectrum, and having ADD, and why I couldn't, or I found it difficult to sort of fit in with mainstream life. Because the internet companies that I worked to, it really was an unconventional kind of workplace. It was all systems, computers, networks, that kind of thing. But and then from there, I decided to go onto YouTube, and I was watching debates. So I can actually thank modern day debate for that, of all things. I went to an after show with an amazing human, and I was saving this up. I wasn't ignoring you. I was saving this up with one of the most amazing people I've ever met, who is Amy Newman, who is, I really look up to her. She is an inspiration to me. She is an amazing person. Her grace and class and sense of humor are second to none. I really do think she's one of the most amazing people on the internet. So if you're not familiar with Amy Newman, she is the night manager of atheism. She runs a channel that does a lot of open rooms and sort of say anything stuff, and she does do debates, and she is an amazing person, and I cannot recommend her enough. That's where I met the atheist community, found a whole bunch of people that were just some of the best people I have ever met in my entire life. They are wonderful, and I can't say enough about them. I and Big Screen Bird, and another one from that area, who is just a wonderful guy, just really good. He's got a lot less patience than me. We can all admit that, but he's fantastic, and I love him. I'm so glad all of you are here. I am so happy. It's amazing, and I will open the room. But before we do, one question keeps coming up that I have to share with you, and you're lucky you're here, because you get the inside scoop because you're here. You get the inside scoop on it all. People ask all the time, "What's in your bookshelf?" Right? Has anyone seen that? People going, "Mark, what's in your bookshelf?" It's not as fantastic. No, I will show you. I will show you. Are you ready? Are you ready for this? Okay, you have to be ready. This is like an overflow bookshelf. This is the spare room. So this is an overflow bookshelf where we stuff everything that hasn't fit into the other bookshelf. Like, Bird, that is a reductionist answer, sir. Yeah, but what books? What books? What books, Bird? Come on, I want to see Big Screen Bird take a guess. What books are in there? Dr. Seuss? Wow. You know what? That's not even an insult, Big Bag Mama. Dr. Seuss is a genius, right? Quick poll. What was your favorite Dr. Seuss book? What was your favorite? All the Bibles. No, actually, not a single Bible. Not one. This is our overflow. This is our overflow bookshelf. The Bible goes in the important bookshelves. Big Screen Bird. In a box. Green Eggs and Ham. That was your favorite. Tolkien. Look, I've got Tolkien. Yes. Green Eggs and Ham. So Horton, Here's a Who. That was good. Anyone like the Lorix? I tell you, my favorite was a book called Fox in Socks. Is anyone familiar with Fox in Socks? Shel Silverstein. Oh, was he the one that did the Berenstain Bears, man? Cat in the Hat? Well, Fox in Socks was this insane book that is impossible to read. It's impossible. It's I'll give you an example of it. Okay, you ready for this? Clocks on, fox tick. Clocks on, knocks talk. 6 sick bricks tick. 6 sick chicks talk. Yes, indeed they do. It's an insane tongue twister, like insane. Here's another one. Where is it? Oh yeah. When a fox is in the bottle where the Tweedle Beetles battle with their paddles in a puddle on a noodle-eating poodle, right? And I used to love my like mum reading that and trying to get through it. Try a different accent. Yeah. I'll try. You want to know the best tongue twister I got? The best tongue twister I got? Try saying Irish wristwatch. Try it. It's ridiculous. Whoops. Okay, so what have I got here? Yes. Digital design and computer architecture. Yes. Absolutely. That's the big thing you're missing out on is digital design and computer architecture. That's what you've been waiting for all this time. A fundamentally thick book. It's actually pretty good on describing computer architecture. Actually, the diagrams look like they're written but like drawn by a 10-year-old, but it's actually good. What else we got in here? Oh yes, of course. Ugh. Anyone recognize this? Yep. This is 3.5 edition of Dungeons and Dragons. Yes, the evil resides in the household. Yes. Purple burglar alarm? Welcome, Spooky. What does that mean? I don't know what a purple burglar alarm is. Does anyone not have a pretty shady history? I don't know, Maya. I think we all kind of do. But I do want to. Oh yes, this is the most beaten up copy of Neuromancer. you've ever seen. It is. I've read this so often, it has fallen apart. Like, I don't know if you can see the color of those pages. They're like soft as silk. This is such a good book. It was written by a man called William Gibson. William Gibson is the father of cyberpunk. He made up that term. He made up the term cyberspace. So when you use cyberspace, thank William Gibson. Absolute champ. I'll just put that there for the moment. And so I've got to show you this. This is the best book I have in my collection, kind of thing. This is Terry Pratchett's The Last Continent. I love Terry Pratchett. I think he was a genius. I think he was amazing. It's a signed copy of Terry Pratchett's The Last Continent. Yep. Signed copy. That's the best book that I've got. I'm still trying to say, yeah, I'm sorry. I just, you know what? I love tongue twisters. I love palindromes. Anyone else love palindromes? Small Gods is fantastic, isn't it? The turtle moves is such, it's his, if you aren't familiar with Terry Pratchett, he writes these kind of silly books that parody weird things in our social structure. It's very silly and genius at the same time. So, for instance, Small Gods, which Pixie mentioned, was a book about. So his world, the Disc world, is basically a flat world that is carried on the backs of elephants. That's carried on the back of a turtle. The Small Gods, they have this contingent of people that think the Earth is a globe, and it's sort of, you know, SFT's ERB manual. I'm sorry, I can't pay money for that. I will not pay money for that. But yeah, so he does all these things about you know, the weird things that we have in our life, kind of thing, in our society. What I'll do is I'll open up the room. I think that would be a really good idea. But I really want people to join, and we can have a chat, and I'll pin that if I can. So if you do want to join, please do. Happy to talk about anything. A lot of my stuff is actually on my Kindle nowadays. I had mixed feelings about changing to a Kindle, right? Otangelo self-published a book. Oh my. All right, that's a horrific sentence, Maya. That's a anyway. What was I talking about? Yeah, I don't. My wife's book isn't in this room. It must be out in the other room. So my wife writes books, actually. She has done like 5 or 6. None of them huge, but you know, she's really good. She oh yes, the Kindle. So I thought I would hate the Kindle. I thought I would absolutely hate going ebooks because I like the feel of the book. I like the you know, all of the pages and stuff like that. And then I got a Kindle, and to be able to have hundreds of books like carried with you in like a large pocket in your bag. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's really cool. It's really cool to have like 100 books in your pocket. It's yeah. Wilberforce has joined, so I'll add Wilberforce to the stream. Welcome. How are you?
How are you, Mark?
Yeah, not bad. How's yourself?
Oh, pretty good. Tired, but you know, that's typical. Dude, congrats on the 500 though.
Oh, thank you. I
Honestly,
really appreciate it.
as one of those subscribers, I'm actually very happy that I did because I get all the alerts and you put on some good stuff.
Oh, thank you.
So,
I do try to go prepared to debates and things like that. I think that a lot of people skimp on the introduction kind of thing, so I do try to focus on that. It does take a bit of work, though.
and I actually I like that you do that. And I don't see a lot of the kind of just dramatic, dumpster fire stuff on your channel, so that's good.
It's there. I do try to avoid it, though. I must admit, I don't
Right.
think it's really productive. But
Well, the whole
I've
transphobic thing with praise and stuff, that was
yeah.
definitely a dumpster fire. That Kevin guy, good lord.
Oh yeah, he's a bit of a nightmare, really. But see, the thing is, I'll tell people that I'm not after a dumpster fire. I don't go in there
Right.
causing trouble, but I'm not really afraid to get in the trenches when I need to. So
Yeah.
I think something like the debate Mr. Batman was probably the worst dumpster fire I've ever seen.
I mean,
Um,
it's Mr. Batman.
well,
So
yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, I get you. It's just
it's bound to
yeah.
be terrible.
Well, I'm not really afraid to hit back if people get down in the dumps, but yeah,
Right.
there comes a certain limit where you have to say, well, I'm not going to stoop to their level. I think it's a real balancing act to be able to
It is.
fight back, but not like go down to their level and just have an out and out shouting match, which
I
yeah,
would
like
agree.
T Jump has sort of delved into there, and I don't think he needs to. I think T Jump's smart and resourceful and really good. He doesn't need to,
He
sort
is,
of.
but he dives into a lot of that kind of debate bro, you know, kind
Yeah,
of kind of attitude, and it's just ugh. I'm 43. I don't
yeah,
have time for that. You know what I mean?
yeah. I don't either. A lot of people sort of also, and I'm glad you brought this up because it kind of worries me. Like I see people who are like, "Well, debate me, and if you don't debate me, then you're scared and you're running
You're
and you're
scared. You're a coward, and yeah.
right, right." And there's just it's
Or I
totally
have better
unnecessary.
things to do.
Sure. Or
You
you
know?
may not enjoy debating, or you may just feel anxious when you're put on a stage, or
Yeah.
there might be a million reasons why
Yep.
you don't want to or can't
You may
debate.
have some kind of anxiety issue or a speech
Right.
impediment. Who knows?
So I don't like I'll ask people, do you want to debate? But if not, that's
Right.
fine. That's your prerogative. Like that doesn't make somebody a coward or horrible or,
Right.
in some way wrong. What, you think you're right because someone won't debate you on the subject? That's
Yeah.
not like what kind of weird
Right.
thinking is that?
It'd be nice if we made more decisions outside of that kind of sphere, frankly, just as people in general.
What
You know,
sphere do you mean?
well, as far as we run into that. I really don't know anything about Australian politics, but here in the
Yeah,
U.S., it is very much that same kind of attitude. You know,
right.
uh, if you don't debate me, bro, then you're a chump and some
Right,
beta,
right.
beta cuck or whatever, and it's like, or maybe you're just not worth my time. You know,
I think that Australian and American politics are very similar. I think that sort of we use a Washminster system, which is a combination between America's and England's, and both systems have their problems. So,
sure.
um, although I will say that our actual electoral system is millions of times better than
Well, you
the
guys are parliamentary
right,
more
right,
along
and
those lines, yeah.
so we have not proportional, preferential representation. So
Right,
what that means is that um, you can vote for, say, an independent, right, and then vote a major party like further down, like there's five different parties. You vote the independent first, four or five can be the major parties,
right,
and you haven't wasted your vote. Like there's a lot of this. Well, if you vote for
yeah.
a Green or independent, you're just wasting your vote. That doesn't happen here.
Yeah, it's ranked choice is generally
Right. Ranked choice.
yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. And so my
it's
electorate,
smarter.
which Well, in my electorate, which had been held by the Conservative Party for like 100 years, it just got
Yeah.
an independent. It got an
Yeah.
independent. So, yeah, it's it's a really good system. And then the Senate is proportional. So across Australia, if you get like 50% of the votes, you get 50% of the seats. So
Right.
it's a direct sort of one-to-one correlation of the population. It doesn't really matter about
Right.
electoral boundaries or electoral colleges
All
or
the
any of that sort of
gerrymandering and all that.
right. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter. Yeah. So it's
Understand, Mark.
good
I
system.
can nerd out about this stuff for a long time because, like, I'm a former civics teacher. Like,
Okay.
you know, political science is my jam. So,
Well, it's really good to meet you in person because all I've done is talk to your comments, which it's not the same thing.
it's
Before,
not.
so
No,
yeah,
it's definitely not.
yeah. So do you run a channel or do you do anything like that?
No, I'm not gonna lie. My technical acumen for really any social media is piss poor at best.
Well,
Um,
same here.
yeah. Um,
Yeah.
I I'm working on setting up a Discord server.
Hmm.
Um, and I'd like to get more into this kind of stuff because honestly, like my kids are grown and out of the house now, and
Right.
it's like, all right, well, I need something to keep my mind peaked.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. It's what was it, Game of Thrones, where Tyrion Lannister said that, like, a sharp mind needs books, like you know a sword needs a whetstone kind of thing. And I think
yeah.
that going
Well,
on
and
and yeah,
Tyrion and I are a lot alike. I mean, he's a hard drinker and a
uh,
debaucherer, and
yeah,
he's short. All the other men in my family are over 6 feet. I'm 5'7". Um, and
that's not too bad. Yeah.
no, it's not terrible, but and then we drink and we know things. So
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, I'm a bit of a weird one for an Australian. I don't drink at all, really. I guess I did when I was younger, but nowadays I just sort of
yeah.
yeah, I don't drink. I don't smoke. I used to smoke. Quitting was one of the hardest things for me. It was
Oh,
rough.
it's really my last remaining vice.
Right.
And I'm not. I just can't bring myself to let go of it. It
Yeah.
really is like it gets a hold of you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I tried to quit many times and did
Oh
for
yeah,
3 years. Went back to it for some stupid reason, and just kept on it.
it
I
stays with you
really,
forever.
yeah.
You know,
Well, I mean that's not true. I mean, you can do it. It's just it's
sure.
rough. I'm not going to lie, it's rough. Um, Oh, Megan, I just want to give a big shout out. Sorry, Bob, boss, to
No, no,
Megan
no.
Satanis, who is a wonderful person. She was probably the first person to subscribe, probably, I'd imagine. So thank you so much, Megan. Yeah, I can do polls. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Why not? I don't know what my next poll will be. I haven't thought that far ahead. I've got no idea what I'm doing, Will, but let's be fair here. I got no idea what I'm doing, but I'm
It's
glad
okay.
I'm here. Yeah, that's okay.
Life, honestly, life is better when you don't really know what you're doing.
Yeah,
It's certainly a
it's
lot more exciting.
there's something almost zen about that, isn't it? It's just sort of ignore
Yeah,
what's going on and do your thing. Yeah, absolutely.
and just kind of
Um,
okay, I'm surfing. I'm gonna ride the wave and figure it out as I go.
yeah. I do like those Eastern religions. That's sort of it. Sort of is Taoism, where if you can explain Taoism, you don't understand it, kind of thing. Sort
Right.
of.
Well, and
Um,
that's honestly, I've adopted a lot of that in the last few years of my life after some pretty
yeah.
crazy, heinous traumas and
Hmm.
kind of a mental breakdown. And I got to tell you, my life is better for it,
Yeah.
you know, because there's so much. I think in those philosophies, there's just so much less worry about like how you're viewed by other people,
Hmm.
you know.
And sort of less worry about the past and the future, and more
Yeah,
just be in the present, enjoy the moment,
yeah,
which I really do love. I've got a tendency to overthink things, like sort of
mhm,
overanalyze stuff. So I really do try to do that. I also recommend mindfulness. Mindfulness is really, really good.
Yeah, I think a lot of people spend a lot of time worrying about, what if this happens or what if this happens? And it's like, well, yeah, but I don't know. What if the Yellowstone supervolcano explodes? Like, I'm in Colorado, so I'm boned. Like, it's over.
Well, if the super volcano explodes, everyone's boned.
Right.
Like, let's face it, it's not going to be a Colorado thing. It's going to be a world thing. But this
True.
is the interesting
But
thing. Like,
that's all. It can happen. Like, okay,
well,
and now
yeah,
what?
yeah. There's nothing we can really do about it though, so it's not really worth worrying about because we're
Exactly.
completely helpless. But what's interesting, and this brings up a good point that I remember this meteor in 2019. It was called OK 2019, and it basically skimmed by the Earth. It came so close. It was like in between the moon's orbit, so where the moon's orbit would be in
Right.
Earth, which in galactic terms is like a bullet hitting your sleeve kind of thing. Like it's close. And it was massive. It was, I think, 10 kilometers wide or something. It was huge.
Yeah, we'd be in a heap of something.
Right. And so you have NASA now trying to see if they can land something on a asteroid to push it out of the way. Right? You've got these people doing these things that 10 years ago we would say we've got no idea how to do that. They're starting to get an idea of how we could possibly save our species from something that until now has been unavoidable.
Even right now, I think they're only really able to track about 10% of the asteroids in the Taurid formation or meteor stream or whatever the term is. But yeah, it's but okay, so that's a thing.
Yeah. But what amazes me is we've got a whole bunch of people basically calling them shills and sort of actively voicing opinions against this organization who are actively working to prevent a global catastrophe. It's one of these things that I've sat back and gone, that is incredible that we have members of our species actively working against.
But let's be honest, Mark. What we should be spending our government money on is tens of thousands of tanks that our military leaders don't even want.
As a preventative measure for other people with tens of millions of tanks. Yeah, no, I understand that argument. Yeah, I get that argument. Yeah, I'm not going to go into interview mode, but I think that humans just are not ready to work together. I think that if something happened, tomorrow that required humans to work together, I still don't think we could do it in order to save ourselves. I kind of fall on the don't look up spectrum of things.
You're not wrong. To be honest, I don't think you're wrong to think that, right? Because I mean, how many decades and centuries of human history indicates that? But we're at the top of the food chain for a reason.
What do you mean?
And it's because we work together. That is the sole reason.
Well, we're not really at the top of the food chain.
Well,
probably be bacteria.
Right. I mean, it's really more of a food web. But what I'm getting at is, as a species, we're not as successful as we are for any other reason than our capacity to work together.
Sure.
Like that is
no, I agree.
Thing.
Yeah.
So if it's an existential threat and a genuine existential threat, I guess, really the hard part at this point is getting people to acknowledge when there is actually an existential threat. And when we're looking at climate change, like that's a thing. It is that. But getting people to acknowledge it is.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons why I think that we couldn't come together, because there's people out there who consider the ending of our civilization to be a good thing, because they're going to go to a heaven
Go
afterwards and
paradise.
enjoy.
Yeah.
Right. And so to the atheist people, that's incredibly frightening, that the end of our civilization is being actively endorsed by some people, or promoted as a good thing. It just is not something that I would
Yeah. Well, and that's so. I mean, understand though. I mean that is a very minimal number of even like religious believers, right? It is a
think so.
small number. Yeah. Yeah, I do, because I think most of them are sitting there thinking, but life is precious.
Yeah, I suppose so. I
It's
mean, yeah, but they do think that. But when it comes to the tribulation and
their
the
voting
apocalypse,
preferences don't indicate that.
what do you mean?
Right. Well, in the sense of like, okay, look at the people we have in the U.S. Supreme Court, right?
Right.
The vast majority of religious people in this country don't support the kinds of things that got those people into their positions. However, um, there's a small number of things that they really do support, and those are the things they're focused on.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Sure.
And I don't know. My great uncle was a Mormon. I don't know what they call their religious leader, bishop. And one of the most open-minded people you could ever hope to speak to about religion. And this guy was devout, right?
Yep.
But he had cold beer in the fridge for guests. He would brew coffee if you wanted coffee. He wasn't going to drink it, but
Right. And Mormons don't do any of that. Did he believe in blood transfusions though?
We never really got into that, actually. But he would talk. He was someone who would talk with you about their religion, and in my and it could be just the kind of people I surround myself with. In my experience, most of the religious people I talk to about those kind of ideas, whatever theological concept or whatever it might be, they're a lot more. They're not, Darth Dawkins or Matt Yester or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, obviously. Yeah, I mean that's a very extreme form.
Yeah, but they're not even. They're not Ted Cruz either.
Okay.
And so, I don't know. Like my ex-wife's mom was a very, very Irish Catholic, and we all know where the Catholic Church falls on birth control and abortion rights. And she disagreed with the church on that because she was a nurse. She had been a nurse for years, and
sure,
she had to assist in a 13-year-old girl giving birth, and that pretty well changed her mind.
Part of my family are Catholic, and they basically, I think they're very jaded on it because of the Catholic view on women being priests. Basically, they're very upset about it because, they're very like strong and independent women in my family, and the idea that a man can be a priest and be an authority, but a woman can't, is just obnoxious. It conflicts with their idea of what's right and wrong. So, and I really feel for them. It's
what baffles me with that is, okay, you have this hardline disagreement with whatever faith tradition,
right?
So leave it. So that's what I don't get.
So I think that a lot of it is sort of cultural, that there is this cultural part of belonging to this organization that goes beyond not only that, but also that they may be completely ostracized from all of their friends if they do leave it. I once knew this girl who was converting from Catholic to Islam, and she lost every single friend she had, every single family member. Yeah, and she came to me, and sort of, this was a friend from work, and she said, "Oh, I'm changing to Islam. Do you have a problem with it? Are you going to stop talking?" I'm like, I don't believe in either, so I don't know why
Right.
I would stop talking to you. No, absolutely not. And so I was one of the very few sort of friends that she kept through that, which was, it's not right.
Yeah.
But the thing about sort of letting people have their own beliefs, and I'm right there with you. And the Mormon thing is that then you get into situations where they don't believe in putting some of them. I don't know if your what was it, your uncle that you said?
My great uncle, but yeah.
Great uncle, right. I don't know if they were in this part, but they don't believe in transfusions. They won't give their kids vaccines and things like that.
No, I don't think it was there.
Okay, well, some of
Yeah.
them don't believe in that, and it's a
Right.
worry. It's a real worry.
So no doubt. And I think one of the biggest problems, and this holds true with almost every religion, is one of the very first things that they tell you to do is stop thinking for yourself.
Yes.
Let go and let God kind of thing.
Mhm.
And it's like,
Jesus, take the wheel.
yeah, let's maybe
Yeah.
not do that, because
Right.
you probably should think about things.
hmm
You know.
Well, I mean, I was having a conversation with in chat. I can't remember where I was. I was on some stream, and I was talking to Bread of Life, and I sort of said, "Well, emotional reasoning is probably some of the worst reasoning you can do." And she's like, "Well, no, emotional reasoning can sometimes be good." And I'm like, "Well, what situation would emotional reasoning, just acting off your emotions, be good?" And she's like, "Oh, well, take, raising your kids." And I'm like, that's. I thought that.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't. I didn't tell her because I don't want to say, "Hey, that's a terrible way to raise your kids," because I don't feel
Right.
like that's my place. But I don't believe. I'd have to disagree and say that having a rational, logical, is this good for my child or is it not, rather than
Yeah.
just feeling something and saying, "Okay, well, let's run with that," is probably a better way to do it.
Right. Well, I mean, having raised a couple mostly on my own, yeah, that you're right about that.
Yeah,
Like, emotional reasoning is a terrible way to approach that.
yeah.
The
I
interesting
think,
thing, though,
yeah.
is we're better at emotional reasoning than we are at logic. We are better at rationalizing the choices we make based on our emotional preference than we are at determining what is logically best. Because what's
Um,
logically best might not be in our personal best interest,
right,
but
right,
might
right.
be in I mean, there's a lot of different context to what is logically best. But with emotional thinking, you are thinking about yourself.
Well, I don't think necessarily so. I think that I mean, that's sort of very dependent on what you're feeling and towards whom. Like, so if you take the kids, for example,
Right.
your love of the kids, you might go, "Well, I'm going to give the kids whatever they want," kind of thing. And that sometimes that's
Sure.
bad for a child. You can't just let a child have everything they want.
Right.
It's a terrible way to raise a child. It'll just create a privileged child. Um, so I think it really depends whether you are thinking about yourself being sort of selfish or not. But I don't know. Are we better at emotional reasoning than logical reasoning? Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah. Um, yeah, I don't know. Yeah. So I mean, it's very strange because being autistic, people are like,
Mhm.
you think this way, and I go, doesn't everybody think that way? I've got no
Right.
basis to compare how other people think. So even as a
Right.
child, I was thinking very, very logically and very sort of kind of thing. I don't get me wrong, I
Right.
still do emotional reasoning. Everybody does, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But
Sure.
I
But
think
theory of mind. So it's interesting you bring up the autism. My nephew has
yeah.
significantly severe autism.
Mhm.
Right. Like, he couldn't do this.
Yeah. Yeah,
Right.
I'm high functioning, but yeah.
Um, but yeah, there is, you mentioned that, well, but I think this, why doesn't everybody think this? And that is definitely something that's very commonplace with, spectrum disorders or what have you.
Yeah.
But I think it's becoming more prevalent just widely. And some of that is the same kind of thought processes that go into, um, religious faiths, but it's not necessarily solely religion that does it.
What do you mean? Like it's becoming more prevalent? The idea that people should think the same as I do?
Or that everybody already knows you're right, but they have some
Mm.
ulterior motive
Well, I
to
mean that
say
goes on a
otherwise.
lot in pre-sup kind of thing. The
Oh
pre-sup
yeah,
is absolutely, notorious for it. The whole idea is, you already think this, and that's how you think. And I get what you mean. I guess I'm not
but
more saying that
but think
I.
about how many. And again, I don't know if this is something that happens in Australia near as much, but a very common thing in the US is, oh, you disagree with me? That means you hate America, and that's why you disagree with me. Because you want America to fail, you know? And it's like, no. I'm not
Hmm,
ascribing a personal emotional feeling to what I think is the best way to achieve, positive outcomes for people.
hmm.
You know what I'm and
Yeah, I don't know if that sort of hyper patriotism. I guess it still does to a degree over here. I won't lie, but it's probably not as prevalent as it may be
right.
in the US. That sort of our country's the best kind of thing.
Right.
I
Or
believe
if
they.
you want to change it, you hate it.
If you
You know.
want to change it, you hate it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that there is an element of that over here, but I don't think it's as much as in the US, where what is it? American exceptionalism seems
Oh
to
yeah.
hold sway a lot. I think there's to a less degree that's true over here, but I think it is a lesser degree.
Yeah.
Just 1 second, Will, but I'm just going to add Sean to the stream.
Oh sure.
Welcome, Sean. How are you?
I'm well, Mark. How are you?
Yeah,
Howdy.
very well. Feeling really good today, actually. Feeling great. I got to 500, so yay.
Congratulations.
Yay, thank you. I
Yeah,
feel really good.
I've been watching for a little bit, just as far as like your debates, and um, I guess the P Brothers is the most recent thing I've latched on to
Oh,
watching
P
you,
Town and Power
and yeah,
Word, or
the other Muppet that you've been talking to, those two guys. Sorry.
you know what? No, 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 no. I understand your feelings. You know what? At least they're cordial and nice. They're not. You know, um, there's some
Mostly,
people that I've run into. Yeah.
a little bit, and I didn't mean to derail the conversation. And sure, they're cordial, but there's a little like underlying like, and I'm sure you pick up on it, but there's a little bit of underlying disingenuousness and condescension, and they touch on it, but you're great at steering the conversation back into
Mhm.
a good place as far as like the thing.
Well, I was annoyed that I stepped away to go into Chrome and they started preaching on my channel. That was annoying. That I was not impressed with that. I will be honest. Um, I expected them just to wait for me to get back. Apparently not. Hi Nitty, hello Nitty. So glad you're here, mate. Fantastic. But yeah, this isn't a pulpit you can preach from, and I made that clear. And I do admit, Sean, they kind of descended on the preaching a little bit, which I'm not interested in hearing. Like it's just sort of being spoken to and told what is real. If when that conflicts with what your interpretation of reality is not. I don't know why anybody does it. It's simply
They
to
can't, Mark.
reaffirm.
They can't help it, dude. That's what they're here to do. That's why they're talking to you. That's
Yeah.
if you go back and watch both of those streams, there are times when they've. I mean, you're talking to two guys that I don't know if they're trolling you, but if they're not, they believe the Earth is 10,000 years old. They're like,
Mhm.
hey, we're going to stand on this science, but any science that actually has like any contention with our beliefs or our book, we absolutely completely deny, but we're going to use science anywhere else
It just doesn't
to
exist.
our our
Yeah.
favor. We're gonna use it. And then they get a little condescending, but you're just wonderful about steering them, and I think maybe just not even acknowledging it is wonderful. Because but I had a good laugh when you came back on and were like, what in the hell are you doing?
I was annoyed. Okay, so trolling. I don't pick up on trolling a lot. I'm notoriously being trolled a lot, and I don't pick up on it. I'm really bad at sensing when people are trolling, and you know what? It doesn't bother me. It says more about somebody than it does about me if I believe them and they're just mucking with me. So what? Yeah, I would rather treat people that are trolling like they're not trolling than treat people who aren't trolling like they are. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
And
I
I don't,
think
Mark, I don't think they're trolling you, so to speak, in that they don't believe the earth is young. I think that they play along with you to get to a point of the conversation to where they can like P-Town in the first conversation would kind of laugh and like, Mark, oh well, you're crazy, you don't think that's true, like that's just ridiculous, and that kind of comes out, but you steer him back into a reasonable conversation instead of holding him there where he wants to kind of get a little bit of I don't know. There's just a little bit of underlying disingenuousness from both of them, and a little bit of stuff. If you go back and listen to like the outside, but you just don't play into it. And I love that.
Yeah, I think there was a little bit coming back from me as well, especially with Power Word sort of saying that he could tell who was using the computer. Like his ideas about Wireshark and what it can do. I don't know why he thinks that, but it was strange, and I was kind of pushing back a lot on that. But
I don't think he picked up on it because I don't know. I had no idea what you guys were talking about. The only thing I picked up on is you were saying, "Hey, look, dude, regardless of anything, you don't know who's at my computer, so you don't know who
correct
is actually causing this." And he's going, "Oh, yes, I do," but he wasn't getting the point of no. You don't know who's using my computer, because ultimately you can say this is what's causing it. Someone typing on my keyboard is causing it, but you don't know that's me. And he's saying, yes, I know that's you. And you're going, no, you have no idea who's sitting at my fucking computer because right. And that's what he wasn't picking up on. And when he finally like hit him, oh, right. Like, but, and that goes with why I actually joined us, because you guys were talking about Wilbur, you were talking about like Rebecca and like, oh, well, before that it was, well, why wouldn't they just leave the religion? But that doesn't happen, right? Because it has nothing to do with the arguments or what brings someone to Jesus. Is not like any of these things that we like to listen to the debates
it's
about.
Not a rational thing.
Yeah.
It's
Sorry,
a
Sean.
need
I'm
and
just
a
gonna.
want. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm just gonna. No. You're right, mate. I will just pick it up in a sec. I'm just gonna bring Nitty on because he's waiting patiently. Nitty, so good to see you. Much love, man. So good to see you. Welcome.
I'm awake.
What time is it there? I thought I did it for a good time in the US. I
Oh, this is great.
Oh yeah,
great. I'm so glad to be able to hop on and say
congrats. It's 6:45 here.
Thanks,
hey.
Nitty.
Yeah.
Sorry, Sean. Go ahead. You were talking about Rebecca, and do you mean Bread of Life, Rebecca, that kind of thing, or
yeah,
yeah.
And I think
was
she got off. You guys were just saying, and one thing that hit me that I just that I thought was when Wilbur was saying, well, like, hey, like, obviously, well, why don't you just ditch the religion when you come to this conclusion? But they'll I don't know why people actually that come to, because we can point out all kinds of things all day long, or things that would make us maybe pop out of some sort of belief, but they're holding on. I live around a lot of young earth creationists, a lot of fundamental evangelical Christians, and they can change. They'll change beliefs on all kinds of things, and we just see this religion as a whole. It's gone from there are more gays preaching, there are more women in pulpits, it's changing, evolving into more liberal things, so it can the belief can hold, whereas the same thing with people, right? Like the normal person is going to ditch a certain part of the belief because they have that need for, let's just say, Jesus, right? So like any of the little things, you all day long you can peg them about the Bible does this, or maybe this is problematic, or this doesn't fall into your political system, and they're going to form all of that around so that they can stay in the Jesus.
Right. Well, and that is that emotional reasoning, right? I mean, that's Jesus makes them feel good, which I understand.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm jealous of people with that kind of faith very often because, you know, I don't feel that there's anything waiting for me after I die. Like, this is it. You know, now me, I'm gonna live it up as best I can and get the most out of it that I can. But ultimately, it's when it's over, and that's it. And there is something I can understand why someone would have that kind of feeling of, you know, something. I don't know what even the right term is, but something emotionally satisfying about the idea of, no, there's more after this. That's going to be even better. And someone who genuinely believes that, they're going to do whatever, you know, they're going to do whatever mental acrobatics they need to do to hold on to that because it makes them feel really good.
Are you an ex-Christian, Wilbur?
Nope.
Okay.
No, it's funny. My folks actually had my brother and I, we both went to a lot of different churches and a lot of different kinds of services and things like that, because they wanted us to be exposed, you know, and make up our own minds with information to be able to do so.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Nidhi, I just got your joke. Thanks.
What joke?
Last time I was in Australia with Nidhi, he fell asleep multiple times. So I just got your joke that you're awake now.
Yeah, I kind of dozed off. It was late. Like when it's late.
That was funny. No, that's fine. You were just insisting you were still awake, and that
well,
you know.
Yeah, that's the beer. Well, it's like I'm naturally progressing towards sleep, and my basement's a little darker. By the way, this is my kids and I's Lego collection behind me, and I collect the Marvel stuff, and then I get things now and again for them to play with. So if you're not familiar with me, that's what the backdrop is today.
It's awesome.
Impressive collection.
So Nidhi, I enjoy watching you as well, and if I'm not mistaken, you said before this is your collection, and they have use of the collection.
Yeah, that's pretty much I say I share.
I love the collection, by the way.
Well, thank you. But no, like with this topic, I mean, the really pejorative and kind of dismissive way to put it is that like belief systems can end up being an intellectual and emotional snuggie. Like you have an answer for everything that you can just run over and grab, like, oh, the explanation on my snuggie, where is it? Oh, it's Satan, right? And that goes in this armhole, and then I'm back in. I'm okay now. Or like, oh, I'm feeling a little cold, the cold, harsh reality that we're going to have suffering. Well, we're in a fallen world. That explains that. I feel good again.
But that's true of even superstitions.
Yeah,
If you're having, you're a baseball player and you're having really bad games, then, turning your in underwear inside out and, throwing a rabbit's foot pen.
Well, I mean, in baseball,
whatever the superstition is, I don't know baseball. I'm sorry, Wilbur. I'm sorry, I don't know baseball. But these things that I'll get better if I just do these things. That's exactly what you're talking about, Nidhi.
Yeah, and like for people, one of the things that I think I'll just say it this way that I'm observing too is that some apologists and people who operate in the great debate sector, niche market of YouTube. If you're smart enough to run this technology, be involved in these kinds of debates and discussions, you're probably smart enough to find a way to make your story work.
Right? You would think.
Yeah, right. Or at least for you're smart enough to figure out, this explanation. There is an explanation, therefore it's still worth holding on to this, even if it doesn't make sense to most everyone else who hears it. it makes enough sense to me to keep it, right? Or maybe someone somewhere out there still has an answer, and my answer is that maybe I won't get an answer, right? I've heard that one before from Christians where it's like,
Oh,
well, this is the part where faith comes in, right?
right.
You know,
God hasn't
Or-
revealed that to me yet.
yeah,
or God works in mysterious ways. So,
yeah,
don't question it because it's all mysterious. So,
yeah. The mystery is the answer. That it's a
right.
mystery.
The greatest non-answer of all time. Yeah.
But again, I mean, I can understand. I mean, I think about this right here. I rationalize this because it makes me feel better,
Mhm.
Well,
right?
no, that's not true because it's that. So when you feel like stressed and you need a smoke, it's actually the lack of nicotine that's causing that in the first place. So
Sort of, but yeah.
it makes you feel better, but it's causing the uncomfortable feeling to start with.
So yes and no.
Okay.
A lot of it is that that dopamine serotonin response, which is a stress reliever and is a very potent stress reliever. But but nicotine and a lot of other drugs create that, right? And so smoking is actually one of the most effective, very short-term stress reduction things you can do, but it's very short-term. I mean, there's a reason it's addictive, right?
But Wilbur, what Mark's talking about is the cyclical, right? So like with booze and cigarettes, and I smoked for 30 years. What Mark's talking about is like that one hit that you're talking about, that very short effectiveness. The rest of the time, it's creating all the stress and all the need and all the terribleness,
Sure.
and you won't even it's hard as a smoker to even understand that, even if you read the literature and know what it's doing, because of maybe it's you like
Because
you
you
like this
have
aspect, you like the
that
social
desire
aspect,
to rationalize the thing that makes you
you
feel
like
good.
you like the hit, you like all of this, but there's also
Right.
something that you physically can't understand, because when you're in the smoking, right? Like when it takes, I think they say it takes like 3 or 4 days for your body to like dispense with all of it if you go cold turkey, but most
Right.
people can't, right? Like that dude Pine Creek's been chewing that gum for years.
Right.
And point being is this: once you get a year away from smoking, you look back on it and go, holy shit, like it's the best decision I ever made. But to get to that point is a long, like for me, I quit drinking 9 years ago, and smoking was worse than drinking. Like I could quit drinking again all day long. I don't think I could quit smoking again.
Yeah, it's rough.
Oh, I know former heroin addicts who are like, nah, I can't bring myself to quit smoking,
Yeah.
and it's like, yeah, no, it's a tough one,
They're
But a
like, I'll
lot
quit the
of,
smack all day long. The cigarettes, nope.
yep,
Yeah, Big Bad
it's
Mama.
crazy.
Wilberforce, Big Bad Mama just brought up your mic is really bad for some reason. I'm not sure
is
if
it?
there's anything you can do about it, but it's.
Let me see what I can do.
Cheers, thank you.
I might just
Hey,
switch setup here.
Nitty, to
Hang on.
touch on what you were talking about before the smoking,
Yeah.
I think I think there are people out there that there's like this spectrum of all different people, and you've got, just to use somebody that we know or people that we know, right? Like you've got people like Kenny and Rebecca
Right.
that I think believe wholeheartedly everything that they say, right? But then I think there are people out there like the William Lane Craigs of the world that maybe, or the Sean McDowells, that understand how their arguments are failing, but they're still propping them up, so to speak, on this, like, well, it's however they reason these out, they understand that problem's there, but this works to their audience, right? Like when they get in a discussion with somebody like Nathan, or they get in a discussion with somebody like who's the wonderful Oppie, right? So they get
yeah,
them,
Graham
they get
Oppie.
in a
Okay.
So you get like Craig or McDowell talking to somebody like Oppie, and they just struggle bus all day long, and they understand they're struggling, right? They understand this is problematic for their worldview, and I don't know how that works behind closed doors, but they can still pitch it to the audience to where the audience says, "Oh yeah, well this is a faith position. Obviously, Oppie doesn't understand, or he doesn't have the magic sauce, so to speak, or the special sauce." But then there are people, and those people, I don't think they ever understand the problem with the actual position they're in or the worldview that they may hold. But then you get people like Rebecca and Kenny, and they have no clue of it's even problematic, right? Like somebody out there like Darth running a script knows his script is problematic. God, I don't even know if that dude's a real person, but he knows the script's problematic. That's why he keeps you on it, because if you get off of it, he knows he's fighting a losing battle unless he keeps that hand tied behind your back.
Well,
And
it's
I think
interesting
so.
that William Lane Craig has sort of gone to a practicality of faith now, the pragmaticism of it. That his arguments have really been more, well, it's beneficial rather than it's true, which is a very weird position to hear such a big name argue from. And it was absolutely noted, and a lot of people commented on it that. And he went to Pascal's wager of all things, which is one of the worst arguments out there. And he sort of said that Pascal's wager was the thing that he thinks is really and it's just, is this
that
William
convinced
Craig? It's it was so strange. Like, it was so weird to see such a big name argue for the pragmatism of being in a religion, not the truth value of it, and B, argue Pascal's wager, which sort of most Christians won't touch with a 10-foot barge pole because it's such a bad argument.
Is this set up better audibly?
Just that's beautiful, man. Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay,
thank you.
Good deal.
There we go.
No, it's funny you mentioned that, because I have a friend who's finishing up seminary to become an Augustinian priest, and he and I go back and forth on various concepts. Like we've been bantering about the Trinity for a while, but when you're talking about that what you had just mentioned as far as those approaches, it's even he looks at a lot of that, like William Lane Craig, oh no, I if it's even maybe even possibly true, I lower the bar, right?
Right.
Yes. Yeah, my seminarian friend is like, what on earth are you talking about? Like, no.
And that was William Lane Craig saying, if we run into problems, just lower the bar.
Yeah. No, it's baffling, but they don't change the bar for anybody else, and I think that's where people get frustrated with them.
So lower the bar for my view of God. But
as I was deconstructing, I noticed that, like, pastors overall and apologists overall, the barrier to entry is faith. It's this, but the barrier out, have you read Aquinas? Don't you know about these arguments? How amazing the historical record is? They throw everything at you to see what sticks on you in particular, right? And they've got something that they'll be like, have you heard this argument?
But it's been revealed to me in a way that I can know that it's true. Like, well, yeah, what way is that? Like,
well, Nettie, what I would guess is problematic for like someone like you when you're deconstructing and being involved in it is one, you're absolutely right. Like, open arms, all you have to do is walk into the church and say, oh yeah, I'm a member, and they're like, welcome, brother, right? Like, and then when you want to leave, especially someone like you that's like the nicest guy on YouTube, or the most recent addition to like this YouTube community, like literally like one of the nicest guys. So when a member like you leaves church and doesn't leave like, hey, I've got to go find another church to go into, but I'm leaving because I no longer believe Jesus. And I just use Jesus as all kinds of one big melting pot of pejorative and
Right.
this is because anyway. So the no longer believes Jesus, man, that hits them because they're like, wait a minute. Like this dude not only was a believer, but he's got, you know, the God-sized hole in his heart. He's got like, I mean, everything. Like, wait a minute. If this guy, I had a friend that left his wife and 5 kids for some other woman, and I said, look, the reason that people are reacting so terribly to you, because he had neighbors cursing him out, churches that like wouldn't see him anymore. I said it's because, and this guy was a youth pastor. I said it's because Brand. I said, dude, because of who you are, they're terrified that if you can leave, then man, I mean, like, what are they gonna do? Because like Nitty's leaving the church. Holy shit! Like, what? Where do we stand? Like, I mean, Bob's definitely out of here, right? Like, I mean,
it made a lot. Now that you're saying it
Nitty
that
seems
way,
so reasonable in the first place. People are gonna like pay attention to him.
Oh, thank you. But it actually makes a lot of sense of the kind of, now that I kind of think back to why my communications tapered off so quickly with people that I was invested in for years. It's like maybe there's like this subconscious like aversion to being like confronted with that kind of dissonant reality, right? This guy used to teach me the Bible. This guy used to, you know, go out, you know, preaching at B-dubs basically before our, you know, small group meetings. And now he doesn't think like this, the experiences he had are valid. Holy shit.
Right.
So it makes a lot of sense that it's like, okay, wait, hold on. We got to backpedal on him now and let him, you know, let him go.
I want to pair it back to what I said about anger being a secondary emotion. Those people cussing out the neighbors, cussing them out, they're not doing it because they're angry. They're doing it because they're afraid, right? That's what's motivating them. They're horrified that they're going to lose the, you know, righteous heaven reward, because they're, you know, that's their fear. That's their big fear. And the church does nothing to assuage that fear. Let's face it. It tries to reinforce that. Like, I bet, Nitty, when you were leaving, you got a ton of, but you know, you won't get to heaven, and you know, you'll hellfire and brimstone, and, you know, hot pokers and whatever will make you afraid enough.
Yeah, I get that. And oh, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
I still get that.
Well, I don't like it, but to some extent, yeah. I get it in the sense that maybe I did the same thing when I was in that kind of atmosphere, right, with people, and maybe I would have, you know, tried that kind of backward ass way of or horrible way of counseling someone to keep them in the fold or whatever. So I get it in that sense. I don't think it's good or recommended, but yeah. But
no, what I meant is, do you still get people sort of saying, "Hey, you're going to go to hell"?
No. From my former community, no, because
right.
they know that. Well, some people are aware that I have a channel and I talk about this shit, right?
Yeah.
And so they don't, what they're not sure about is what I might say about what they said to me and how that went, right? So they play it kind of safe now. The ones that know about it, the other ones that don't. Some of them are surprised because now I just come right out and say like, hey, I do this because, you know, I'm against the ways in which you do things, but I'm not against you, right? The fact that we're talking right now shows me that there's something better about you than how we've done things, right? Or how things got ran there, right? Yeah. So that's good, right? And I extol them for that and thank them for that. So and lately things have been just trending in a better direction, right? I'm able to like text people and, you know, maybe plan things, and they come over my house with bourbon, so I can't be too sad about that.
So you're literally doing exactly what the church leaders said you were going to do, luring them away into the hands of Satan. You evil man.
There's two I met actually. One, they're both like have been in some like leadership type role, right? And one I used to was like, I was like his like protege or whatever, and the other one, he said something to me. He said that he views his brother and sister, or his brother and his sister-in-law who left, as in an anti my former church cult, basically, which has a whole bunch of problems to it. But I let him say it because that's how he felt about it, even though I know it's like grossly inaccurate and blah blah blah. But that just showed me that deep down there's an incredulity that he has for his position, or not incredulous. Is it incredulity or incorrigibility? Like he can't be convinced right now that he's wrong about what he like. That's what that told me, right? It signaled to me, okay, he's very convinced, and there's nothing I'm doing right now that's dissuading him, and
you're not
fine.
gonna.
Right, yeah, and I was okay with that. I was at peace with that the next day. I was like, okay, thanks for the bourbon. But Mark, I wanted to say I'm really grateful that when I do my late night streams, that you pop in and engage like on the topic of the stream. You're a great moderating presence to have, and I'm just so thrilled how you helped handle the Kenny situation. And
Kenny situation.
The Kenny situation when Kenny came on. Were you there?
Oh, yes. Sorry. Yeah. He was a lark, wasn't he? He was fun.
Well, I'm intrigued.
But it's always a Kenny situation. Whenever that dude's in a fucking room, he is just man. I mean, he's gonna. I'm not here to talk about it. I'm not here to argue about it. I'm here to tell you how it is, and then I'm gonna leave. And if you don't like it, I'll just leave before I tell you.
He's not an apologist. He's a preacher.
That's terrible.
Yes, that's clear.
Yeah. Sorry, Wilberforce. This was a guy who was very, very sort of preachy on Nitty's channel kind of thing. It was
still, it doesn't change.
Yeah,
go on. At least he's spared my comment section. But.
So he took off when I think it was somebody said, if you took out, you said, Nitty, if you took out part of your brain, you'd just go for a pair of tits on a cross instead of the actual Jesus.
He's like,
and then I said,
too much.
That's not true. Maybe he's an ass man. And that's when he took off. Like, I don't know if it was me or you that caused that. Maybe both of us, but.
Like I have a way though of like trying to come up with like these dastardly ways to put the thought experiment that are a bit crass or something, and it gets under his skin. He really doesn't like it, and I think it drives my mom crazy too sometimes. But it's like, now what if, right? But yeah, it's basically this the mind body problem for Christians and. Putting the thought experiment as such that are you still you, this fundamental you that makes like some kind of free will decision if you remove a chunk of your brain, especially like the parts that are responsible for impulse control and things like that, right? If you took that part out that we know does that, right? Would you be more apt to sin or less, right? And the answer is obvious. You're way more, right? Like, so the cross of a bleeding naked man, not very appealing, but a smoking hot, chick.
It would get roughly half of us anyway.
Right. Maybe the blood would still have to be there for some of us. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it also depends on your sexual orientation. But yeah, I get your point. Like, like
the average heteronormative.
The brain seems to be controlling our decision making in the way of, what is moral and what is not moral, not some external thing. I'm just going to bring Leo in because fantastic.
We love Leo.
Hello, symplectic transformation. What is that, please?
Symplectic transformation.
Okay.
It's just a particular transformation you can perform on a particular type of vector space that preserves a particular type of symmetry. I could explain it further, but I don't think people came here to listen to me lecture for 20 minutes on linear algebra.
Okay.
Nerd. No, I'm kidding. It's
all good. Welcome, Leo. It's so good to see you, man. I feel like I haven't talked to you in ages, mate. I feel like it's been too long, but welcome.
Yes, it's been too long. What, 5 days? 4 days? 5 days?
I miss you. No, I don't know. I have no idea. Look, time's a bit weird for me at the moment.
Yeah,
Yeah. time is relative right now for me.
You
so.
goddamn right it is.
Yeah,
Christians don't like
always.
that, but it doesn't matter, does it? Facts don't care about your feelings, do they?
Well, not usually.
That's right.
And speak. No, go ahead.
Yeah,
Mark.
go ahead. No, go ahead. I was going to ask you about like I was reading up on actually looking at a YouTube thing about Penrose's cyclical universe, and I wanted to know. But anyway, that's aside the point. I'll talk to you about it later. What did you want to bring up, Leah?
I was going to say and speaking of the concept of like property dualism and philosophy of mind is quite interesting. I've read in it before. I've been reading a little bit in it over the last couple of weeks, just based on some discussions that I've heard. And I have to be honest, sure, it could be that maybe I just haven't looked into it deep enough, despite having read some pretty decent, pretty substantive works in the philosophy of mind, as well as some stuff in neuroscience. But I just don't see anything indicating the legitimacy of any other broader metaphysical view with respect to the mind than physicalism. I just don't. I see nothing.
I think that split brain patients are kind of probably the strongest evidence, I would say, against dualism, because it is much more complex hypothesis to put forward that you have an external source than the source is the brain when you split it. Is everyone familiar with split brain patients?
Yes. For my own clarification, are you talking about the people that can write one sentence with one hand and a completely different sentence with the other hand?
Yeah, essentially like the corpus callosum is split, right?
Split.
Yeah,
that's the one. So you get two distinct personalities. The right hand will write with the left's personality or the left's consciousness, and the left will write with the right's consciousness. And what's even weirder is you can have one side of the brain a theist and the other side of the brain an atheist. Right, so they have opposing views.
Yeah, how does Romans 1 deal with that?
But wasn't that the guy that got nailed through the eye with a train spike or a pipe or something through the head? And
Phineas Gage, yep.
Phineas, that's right.
But that's not a split brain thing. That's a just like
that was a lobotomy.
That was physical brain trauma and stuff from the damage.
And stuff.
It was an actual lobotomy.
Isn't he still the person, at least that we know of, that's had the most physical brain damage yet was still alive, or is there somebody else?
No. There was actually a guy in Colorado, probably 15, maybe 18 years ago, got shot in the head during a robbery with a shotgun.
Wow.
And it literally took out like 30% of his brain.
Do we know if it was scattershot or?
I'm pretty sure it was, a slug.
Oh, okay. That'll still do some serious fucking damage. Holy shit.
Oh, yeah. It'll wreck you. But what ultimately happened, he did survive. Luckily, his brainstem, his medulla oblongata and all that, it survived. And he was able to stay alive long enough that obviously it took years and years, but he was able to regain most of his speech capacity and most of his physical movement and coordination. And obviously he wasn't he definitely wasn't the same person.
Quote unquote.
Right. Yeah.
Wasn't there a female senator as well?
Yeah. Right.
You know how people get about identity and shit.
Right. But he wasn't the same personality.
Yeah.
But he had most of what we would consider, normal brain function.
Yeah. Which I think is just so cool.
It's insanity.
I've even heard from neuroscientists that now, obviously, there can and most likely will be changes. Most of them will probably be permanent. There's nuance to this. It depends on the areas that are damaged.
Yep.
Sure.
But it is possible for the brain to receive quite substantial damage, yet the agent still be alive and still maintain some meaningful level of self-awareness. And I just think that is actually pretty cool.
Oh, yeah.
That is pretty cool. But depending on the place also, don't forget, if you're doing a prefrontal lobotomy, all you got to do is hit a spike into one specific spot and that person's out.
Yep.
Their personality's wiped, basically, which is insane as well and fascinating as well.
Well,
brutal.
Oh yeah.
Can I ask
And
you a
they used
question?
to do it a lot.
This just goes back to what you and Wilbur were talking about, Mark, and it's simply we have no good reason to even think that we can operate outside of a brain as far as like consciousness goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only people that push back to this are people with a reason, which I don't think is good, but to think, and it's whether it's a soul or heaven or another life or an afterlife or spiritualness or some sort of, but if I mean we have no good reason, at least like we've never seen anything to even indicate that we can operate in any shape without a brain. I mean, maybe if we can download ourselves into a computer, sure, but we have to have some sort of something for consciousness to work, right? There has to be some sort of engine.
Yeah, I was going to say even that would ultimately be consistent with at least most ideas, the vast majority of physicalist positions. If we could download consciousness and shit like that. I mean, quite frankly, the idea that consciousness survives like death of the body could be consistent with physicalism. If you believed that whatever form that agent was in, following that was still physical in some way, that would be consistent with physicalism. So,
or the self is some kind of previously unrecognized form of energy, right? Which I mean, let's be honest, dark energy's a fairly recent thing. So okay, fine, but energy is part of the real material world, so that's not an issue.
Exactly.
Nanalu, I would love to hear a discussion on shame, which is a total non sequitur from what we've been talking about. I love it. Thanks, Nanalu.
But
No,
seriously,
it's
yeah, I know.
Like, well, I mean, so what do I see as shame? Shame is completely and utterly unhelpful. Like, it's just not a helpful emotion at all. I don't think that being ashamed of yourself helps in any way. All you're going to do is spiral yourself, like basically reinforce this belief that you have something to be ashamed of. I think that forgiveness of self is a way better way of doing it, sort of making amends or doing something to not remove culpability for something you've done wrong, but just relieving that idea that you have to hate yourself for things that you have done. Forgiveness of self is really powerful. It's acknowledging that you have done wrong and you'll endeavor to correct that in the future, and not holding it against yourself because you're just one person that makes mistakes. I don't think that shame is in any way useful for motivation or in any way useful in life at all. There are much better ways to deal with sort of feelings of guilt than shame.
So you don't think that looking at a particular action and saying, I would be ashamed of myself if I did that, is somehow it doesn't have a possible productive benefit?
So what we're talking about is sort of a shame, like it sort of comes from an external source mostly.
Okay.
So feelings of guilt is normal when you do things wrong. So sort of a guilty feeling, oh, I did this and it was really wrong and I feel guilty. And that's completely normal. Shame is the idea that you shouldn't you should be taken away from other people or castigated or something.
Or that you're unacceptable in some way.
Right. It's that really negative feeling that you should be ashamed of who you are for doing this thing. And that's obviously an extreme example, but it's just when those feelings of guilt arise, thinking yourself intrinsically a horrible person or flawed in some way, or this idea of shame that you should be taken away from society and you don't belong in society. This whole idea is really detrimental. I don't think it's useful at all.
Can I throw a wrench in this really quickly?
Throw.
What do you think about? Do you think that somebody who's raped somebody should feel shame?
Do I
do.
somebody? I think they should feel.
See, that's
guilt.
kind of actually what I was getting at, Leo.
Right. I think they should feel guilt, but here's the problem with shame: that when you shame yourself and go, you are a terrible person with no hope for you, that kind of level of shame, there is a problem with acceptance of that, right? So you will go, okay, well, I'm just a complete, fuck up who can't do anything right, and I do these horrible things. I should be ashamed of myself. And that shame sort of builds up until you accept that as a thing. I don't think it's useful, even in that case. And that's not to say that person shouldn't feel guilt for what they've done. They should definitely feel guilty for what they've done.
I want them to feel more than guilt. I want them to feel shame.
Well, it depends on what your motivation is. If
But
your
the question
motivation
is, what's
They raped
the-
somebody, so
Well,
I want them to feel shame.
Well, if your motivation is for them to feel bad, you'll certainly get that out of it. But if your motivation is that people won't rape others anymore, it's not productive.
Well, yeah, I'm not speaking about like praxis with respect to preventing rape. I'm just saying that I think people who rape should feel shame for having done so.
No, I would disagree. I think they should feel guilt and maybe extreme versions of guilt, but shame's another beast.
Well, that's what I take shame to be, is just guilt. Like self-abuse, I don't consider that to be shame.
Okay, just 1 second. I'm just going to add my darkened understanding. Oh, it's just you, Sean.
He
said he was going to
So,
Yeah,
sorry, I missed that.
It's
Sorry.
really important that you made that distinction between guilt and shame, right? And when you're or at least for me, in my Christian like lived experience for the longest time, those things would be like I get like this much guilt but this much shame, right? So, and the reason in part of that is because of the way that the Christian life is framed in this constant sense of tension between this righteous man that's living inside of you and the sinful man that's living inside of you, right? So which one am I really, like, we would say things like, which one am I identifying with? Is my whole lived experience that sinful, evil man who deserves shame, right? Like that there's this unacceptableness before God and other people, right? For the thing that I did that I should probably just feel guilt for and move on. Now, with respect to what Leo, the hypothetical you put down, of course, I think that the guilt should be proportional to like, the action, right? But I think the opportunity and community's work to redeem that person, like through therapy, through maybe brain studies, something, right? To try and get them past and through this, and recognizing that there is still a possibility for this person to change, or maybe we find out there isn't. But that we're more willing to do that for people like that, or in those kinds of conditions or addictions, or in moral failings. I wonder what we would be as a society if we had apportioned guilt, and then we could say things like, well, you don't have a fundamental sin nature that drove you to do this that is irredeemable or anything like that. You have a reformable set of brain states that we're going to try and work with you and work within your community, work within your environment to improve all this for you, so that in the future we can be a more cohesive community of people and productive.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think shame precludes rehabilitation.
Well, I want to share with you, because I mean, this is sort of, I was talking earlier about my past life, especially my time in sort of high school and the bullying and destructive damage that I received through that. So when enough people put this stuff on you, and this is just my experience from my youth, that people were telling me how terrible and how fucked up and how stupid and how all these things to me, that I ended up coming out of high school deeply ashamed of myself. I would be afraid for people to find out my name or things like that. You know, I wouldn't think myself a part of society at all. I was horrendously isolated from society, and that's what shame does. So you think that you are not worthy of being connected to anybody, right? So that disconnection from the rest of humanity is what shame promotes. It's this idea that you are an absolutely terrible person. You don't deserve to be interacting with anybody. And that's the dangerous thing about it, because we know that people that lack connection are more likely to do these things than people that do have a connection to others and society and community kind of thing. I get where you're coming from. It seems sort of taking it lightly to say, hey, let's not make these people ashamed of the hideous, vicious thing that they've done, because it is. Like, I don't disagree with you, Leo. In the short term, it feels better to shame somebody that has done a wrong of that magnitude. However, it's the same as it feels good to punch somebody, you know, to show them that they're horrible. It promotes violence, right? So that person, you know, it's not a good long-term solution, in my opinion.
But
I don't know if I would agree that shame promotes violence. I don't identify shame with the concept of self-destruction either.
That's not what I said. I said that punching somebody may feel good short term, but it just promotes violence.
But doesn't that seem to be analogically considering that shame promotes violence?
No.
I think there's a distinction that needs to be made here between a shameful act and a shameful person, right? Because raise your hand if you think you've ever done anything that you would be ashamed of doing. Right?
You can't see my hand.
All of us.
It's definitely raised.
Right. All of us would, but I don't think any of us are ashamed, feel like we're a shameful person, like we're inherently bad or unacceptable. Right. And so the application and how we treat it is pretty important.
Can I ask everyone?
Hey,
go ahead.
Leo,
No, finish.
Because that just the real short of it is, one, we're not theists, and we're not like born being told we're terrible people or we're broken. But it goes back to what you and Mark were talking about, or a point that you made, and you said you were jealous of theists, and I think I understand what you're saying, but me waking up in the middle of the night terrified of death every now and then, I think is a much easier price to pay for knowing at least what I think is reality, and being able to like navigate my way through life, and us being able to get to the root of like shame with the five of us talking about shame and how to deal with it. Like, what's the best way to deal with it? While many people are dealing with it in a much different way, and a way that I think is just a completely like fantasy world, right? Like, I mean, it doesn't actually get to the root of any of our problems as human beings, and it's not going to fix anything. So they may have this one idea that comforts them and allows them to sleep better at night, but I think they're riddled with so much more guilt and shame and all of these other problems that they've literally grown up, that's been beaten into them. And then the fact that like we get nothing done, whether it's politically or just in the medical, in all of the regular world. I'm sorry, Leo, I didn't mean to cut you off. Just that was all I wanted to say.
And that's okay, Leo. You can disagree. I get that. I just that's my feeling on it, because like you said, like everybody in the room has agreed that we've all done things that we sort of feel like it should be ashamed of, and I could easily go back to going, oh well, you know, I did this, I'm just ashamed of myself. But that sort of forgiveness of yourself for doing things wrong, I just think that's so important.
Is there anything? Is there anything that you've done that you would say you ought to feel shame for having done?
I don't. I think there's things that I've done that I definitely should feel guilt about having done. But I think sort of making amends and moving on, I think that I have done enough to um, make reparations or make some sort of correction in my behavior that I don't think I should still feel guilty for the things that I've done in the past.
Well, I'm not saying you should feel shame for them now, but are there things that
Right.
you that you have done that you ought to have felt shame for having done? I'm not necessarily
Leo,
saying
At the time, you
shame
mean?
be maintained
Leo, do you think
over time.
do you think there are things that we should feel ashamed of doing? Like, what do you think we should feel ashamed for doing?
Things like rape, murder, unjustified theft, things of that nature. But what I wanted to say earlier is that
work?
I think most of us would say that having a sense of humility is a good thing. But I don't think any of us would say that humiliation is a good thing. And I view shame the same way. We should all have a sense of shame. I mean, this is going to sound really weird, but have none of you ever heard the phrase, "Have you no shame"? I don't really see much of a difference between the word guilt and the word shame, much like I don't see a difference between the word should and the word ought.
Well,
So, Leo, I think you're actually
meanings at the moment. No, just Wilbur, just one sec. I think you're conflating meanings at the moment. So when you say, do you have no shame, it's usually talking about, do you have no societal norms that would be accepted in society? Like the words that you're sort of equivocating right now. Sorry?
Is that not what shame is? That there are actions that we engage in that we oughtn't to engage in, and that if we do, we should feel some sense of guilt or shame for having done?
Well, I think guilt, but shame is a very, very specific thing in psychology.
I don't personally draw a distinction between those.
Well,
much like I don't draw a distinction between the word should and the word ought.
Let me finish. Shame is the self-denigration of identity, right? So when you're
I don't agree with that. I don't think that's what shame is.
Okay. Well, then we've got a different definition of shame then.
Leo, do you feel shame ever?
Yeah, all the time. Well, I shouldn't say all the time. When I do something that I oughtn't do and it's like severe, like if I oughtn't, I don't know, drink another beer before I go to bed, but then I do, I don't feel shame for that. But if I oughtn't like push the person in front of me because they said something they shouldn't have said and they're elderly and then I do it anyway, yeah, I'd probably at some point end up feeling some shame for that. I don't think shame is an extreme emotion. I don't see it as really much different from though to me the words guilty and the words shameful or shame are going to be no different than the words should and the word ought. Like they just kind of mean the same thing.
Mm-hmm. And that's fair. I honestly think, Leo, what you were previously speaking about was in a lot of ways roundabout pretty much the same thing that I mentioned about, differentiating between having a feeling about a shameful action versus being a shameful person.
Well, right? I mean, there are people I think are shameful people. I think Nazis are shameful people. I mean, just straightforwardly. I don't care what anybody else says, but I don't view shamefulness or shame as some like extreme thing that should be avoided at all costs. I don't see it as being synonymous with like self-abuse, self-disrespect, self-depreciation. I think those are extreme instances of both shame and guilt. We can be unhealthily guilty of things. Like there are some people who have bulimia or anorexia who are unhealthily guilty, or you could even say shameful of having eaten certain things. I just, like I said, I think the best way to, at least for me to put it, is the difference between guilt and shame is the same as the difference between should and ought, in that the one might be more like a technical term, but they kind of just mean the same thing to me.
Okay, so I just put a link in the private chat about a paper that sort of is from the Europe Journal of Psychology that sort of outlines the differences between shame and guilt kind of thing. So it's sort of saying that the negative evaluation, the mere reflection on one's own character may elicit guilt. How the perception of that guilt onto one's self-esteem and identity is what shame is. So when you say, "Hey, I have done something wrong. I feel guilty about that," that's guilt. When you say, "I've done this and I'm a terrible person," that's shame. Right? They're in psychology, they are two distinct things.
It sounds
That
like
may be
guilt.
true, but I don't think psychology has like a monopoly on how these terms are used. I just don't consider much of a difference.
Okay,
I guess I'm saying then that I'm using them in the psychological definition. So there's a paper that if you want to understand it, where I'm coming from when I talk about it, that's what I'm talking about.
And I want to interject here because one of the things that I have to and am working towards and recognize within myself is that I have a very strong tendency to do exactly what Mark is saying, to view some decision I've made that I probably ought to, like I spend too much money on something, right? I should be guilty that I, in fact, did, maybe spend more than I told my wife I would, and I broke some trust there. So I need to be forthright, communicate that, blah, blah, blah. But that doesn't mean that I am a lifelong now thief, right? It doesn't mean that I am a total bastard husband. I made a mistake, right?
Right. You're not a reprobate.
Right, but but I struggle very, very intently with dissociating those kinds of ideas from each other, right? It becomes very easy for me to reach back into the grab bag of worldview of my religious self or my scrupulous self and say, that's the evil sinner, right? That's this reprobate moral agent that just wants to like flip tables and say screw everyone else, right? When I don't really believe in that, but my brain has it so wired to go from action, punishment, continued what's the word I'm looking for? Continued emotional grime, dirt, like you're dirty, right? There's this pathway that's built into me to keep experiencing
Degradation.
Degradation. To keep self like immolating myself over it, right? And it's just kind of, I don't know if it's something from when I was very young or if religion also kind of tacked that on or reinforced that kind of.
The next step from there is internalization of that message, right? It's that I am in fact a reprobate mind that has no hope, and that explains why I do these terrible things. So I may as well accept that, and that's the internalization of that idea and that's why sort of I'm saying that shame is dangerous, because what it leads to is the internalization of the idea that it's not something wrong you did, but it's something wrong with you.
It's fundamental and it's incurable and things like that.
Well,
right.
And then the person experiencing that can do a couple of things. They can get suicidal, which happened to me a bunch. They can withdraw from just withdraw, or they just act in rage, right? Which is also bad.
I've done all
we
three.
Don't want those things. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
I definitely did the rage part. But
yeah, I remember taking a Louisville Slugger to a metal dog cage, and let's just say the cage didn't look like a cage when I was done.
Well, look, but if you're talking about like getting angry or like guilt being or shame being driven somewhat by guilt, like all of these are the problem I have is with the religion part of it is it's carte blanche to do whatever the fuck they want, right? Or just to say like a hand wave away anything that they do. So I don't think they're struggling with maybe a lot of people that I know won't struggle with shame or guilt or any of these things as much as someone that doesn't have an easy out to say, oh, well, I'm just a broken person, right? Like, I mean, I've got friends that constantly, you know, when we have a discussion, I say, well, you know, don't you think you ought to be a better person, or that people would be better if Christianity were true, or there were some sort of religion or some sort of like universal something other, we should see like something of it. Oh, well, no, of course not. We see exactly what we are because we're all broken, right? We're born that way. We like, I think it's, you don't
and in a lot of ways it takes away that personal accountability.
That's a great,
yeah. Well, but at the same time,
I was just made this way.
But at the same time, what religion is doing is generating this idea of shame, which they internalize, and then they're selling you the cure for that shame by absolvance of that feeling, which only lasts until you do something else wrong, or you screw up, or you feel like,
or Mark, it doesn't actually happen until you're dead. So like you don't even have to address it because you know you're always going to fuck up again. You know you're always going to be broken. You know there are no healthy people in hospitals, or what's the common trope? There are no they're all sinners. Like church isn't full of like non-sinners or whatever the fuck the word. But the for me, it just always goes back to like when we sit here and the five of us were just having that conversation, and you and Leo are going back to like, what is shame? What is guilt? How is this? That's a real conversation. Nobody's saying, oh, well, it's because you're, you know, a piece of shit from the get-go. You're born broken, right, Leo? That's why you've got this problem. And we're going to struggle for years and years because religion's not going away, or these hand waving's not going away. And it's nice that you've got guys that, like you guys, that fight for it online a little bit, but ultimately people like Rebecca, you know, get pushed back so much. And I wanted to ask you this, Leo, because you were familiar with her, but I feel like, if I'm not mistaken, didn't she say, hey, I'm not making any progress on the internet, so I'm going to go back to church where I know I can do, basically. I can preach the gospel better or something? Like,
I don't feel comfortable sort of trying to figure out the reasons why she left YouTube.
That's fine.
I do have my own well, I mean, I can really only speculate. I have my own speculations. I don't know if those would be my speculations. Those could be the reasons she gave. But I mean, I've got some speculations as to why she stopped.
It wasn't to be mean to her. It was just to say that there are these people out there that are always going to be, when they do get pushed back in the real world, or we have a real discussion about issues or problems, or anything becomes too real, people dip out, you know, and they go back to a safe place or a safer place. And that goes back to what you guys were talking about, the emotional. It's always going to be
people do that for a variety of reasons. I think there's a lot of different reasons why people do dip out or you know, sort of isolate and things like that.
Well, and with Rebecca, I don't think it was because she wasn't making progress. I said, I've got some reasons as to why I think they're probably true, but I don't think they're that.
But really, it's her decision, and whatever decision she makes is her decision. It's her channel. She was running it. I think I at least respect that. I wouldn't try and put a reason on it, especially, you know, sort of you know, knowing her mind, because we obviously don't. I think that she's just made a decision that's the best for her. It really doesn't worry me why she's gone back. I've heard rumors, and it would disappoint me if rumors were true, but I don't. They're just rumors, you know. So there's nothing that I can really say on it.
They're kind of just rumors and kind of not. It just kind of depends on who you're talking to.
Well, they're probably not rumors because people are repeating them, but you know, I'm not going to. So you know, there you go.
I am at a complete loss here. I have no idea what any of that is.
It's all right.
Rebecca was a young Earth creationist, and she was very different from the rest. She wasn't a traditionalist right-winger. She Lance Bush, I don't know if you know who that is. He's been doing the rounds over the last year on YouTube talking about moral anti-realism, because he's a moral anti-realist. He has extremely good arguments for it because, well, I think moral realism is somewhat incoherent. That's just me. He convinced Rebecca to become a moral anti-realist. The argument from evil, the logical argument from evil as I presented it, she to this day maintains is a serious problem for the Christian worldview. So she attracted a lot of atheists to her channel. In fact, when she hosted open mics, she was oftentimes the only, if not maybe one of two Christians on. The other one usually being maybe Sal or Otangelo. So she didn't have good, so she didn't have good partners with, to talk about these things.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I've got my speculations as to why she left. I feel confident that they are in fact true, and it kind of sucks, but more power to her for just refusing to deal with that bullshit.
Yeah.
To be honest, that's why I've kind of slowly been dipping my toe even into this, environment for that very reason. Because if you're not talking to people who can actually have a conversation like a rational person, you're going to get turned off to it so fast, and if you're surrounding yourself with toxic personalities, which is kind of what it sounds like, you're going to burn out.
It's the internet, Wilbur. I mean, you can't read the fucking chat. I mean, at least if you're halfway, you stay away from reading the chat, and then, Mark, this is like your 500 subscriber show. So, I mean, look at the stuff that Mark's been dealing with just on it. And he's like one of the more polite people and doesn't take the bait when people are dicks to him. He doesn't really give it back to him. He just kind of keeps going with. I mean, he literally sat through Kent Hovind calling him an idiot for like an hour, I think.
Yeah, I watched that. That was
I did
exactly what you expect from Kent Hovind.
So, Leo, I'm sorry to interrupt, but
no, you're good.
Before it gets too late, and I do have to go to bed at some point, Mark, I did want to ask how, since it is 500 subscribers, how your channel's going in your eyes. Like, are you happy with it? Like, are you?
Oh yeah. I didn't expect to be here really much at all. I more just put it up out of just a whimsy kind of thing. So it's absolutely incredible. I know it's not huge, but it's it's something, and it's mine, I guess. It's really nice, and I love this people that have subscribed. I like their comments. I try to check them more than I probably do, but I do like replying to people. I do like people leave there. So yeah, it's been great. So no, I didn't think I'd be here. No, I didn't think that at all. And let's face it, I'd be doing exactly the same thing whether it was just me by myself or whether it was, a million people watching. So, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm just going to do what I'm doing. And
I'm having fun with it,
Yeah.
To be honest, Mark, the fact that you are so responsive on like comments and stuff or what have you probably has contributed to some of that growth, because people do like to feel, noticed, included.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that all of them are fascinating. One guy left comments on sort of geology and stuff. Another one on it's just all kinds of stuff. It's just really interesting things. So, it gets my mind working as well when somebody comes and drops a comment saying, "Hey, when you said this, it brought up this for me," and I'm like, "Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it." So, yeah, keep them coming.
Well, that's good, because I think the conversations are pretty good.
Yeah, so speaking of toxic YouTube, just want to shout out Gur Streams. Hey, Gur, how you doing?
On that same note, I did want to comment to a point that Wilbur was making here, where you sort of get burnt out when you're discussing with just people who don't engage honestly. You either burn out or you turn into me. And I think both Nitty and Mark and Gur, if he's still listening, maybe even James Wolf that's now in the chat can testify, because they've been present when it's happened. There have been people that have come into streams, oftentimes on Gur streams. Shout out if you love dumpster fires. There's actually not that many dumpster fire. We like giving Gur shit, because if they do happen, that's where it is.
Gur always starts it. I love Gur, but he always starts it.
He's helped me get it going.
Well, and I'd say Leo's a big.
I honestly don't know Gur,
as
so.
well.
But with me, it's not that I just get like burnt out. I get very rude, and I'm gonna be honest. I have no problem admitting that, because the people that I'm engaged with, and I think that probably not everyone, but most people who have seen these particular interactions that I've been in would agree that there's at least some sense in which it's justified. Because when I am asking you direct, straightforward questions and you're dodging them, when I'm asking you for clarification and you're not providing it, when I'm offering up meaningful objections and you're not responding to them, yet you're demanding all of this from me. When I ask a question and somebody doesn't answer it and I stop them to tell them, hey, I'm sorry, but this isn't relevant, and they bitch and complain, I don't care.
Oh, it gets old.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I understand where you're coming from. That's why.
Or discharitable interlocutor is in and of itself a rude thing to do. And so if you do that to me, I will be rude right back. And I have no problem admitting it. And I don't care what other people think.
Those are the points where you hear Skylar Fiction tell somebody to go eat a bag of dicks. Right? Yeah,
or like if you've ever heard Jack Angstrike go off on a Christian.
Oh, yeah.
or Aaron Raw go off on a Christian.
Yep.
But Leo, I think there are times
like,
when...
I'm sorry, you want to get in the mud? Let's get in the mud, because I was born in it, molded by it.
Well, sure.
Yeah, but I still don't
when you're only a man.
You merely adopted the mud after you became a man.
So I at the moment, and I can't say that I won't become jaded, because obviously I don't have your time on the internet, Leo, at all. I fully acknowledge that. However, I have worked in complaints for Australia's largest telecommunications provider for years and years and years. So there's that. But at the moment, I see that as a good thing for me when someone's being dishonest, because I can point it out and say, hey, this is actually dishonest. And I think it works well for my style. But having said that, give me a couple of years, I might be as jaded as you, mate.
Well, I don't know if I'd consider it, because like when people are dishonest, it's not that I'm like dishonest back. I'm just a little bit rude. I'm not even like insultive. I'm just a little rude. Like, somebody's not answering my questions, I'll be like, I'm sorry to interrupt, but this I don't understand the relevance of this. This isn't what I asked you. And then they say, well, I'm answering your question, and then I'll just go off and be like, well,
there is that.
So what was my question? Recapitulate what my question was back to me, and then reiterate what your response was. And then there will be like 5 seconds of silence because they weren't listening to the question, because they wanted to hear themselves talk, like Otangelo does all the time. And then I have to reiterate the question. And then that's when I'd be like, yeah, so you weren't listening, were you? You were just waiting for your turn to talk. That's no problem. Here, I'll just recapitulate the question. So the question that I mean, that's a little bit rude, but I think in doing that, you're demonstrating the other person's dishonesty. You're laying it bare.
So
I hear you, and I've heard your debates, and I like them, but it's not always effective to take that approach.
Not always.
So this is a perfect example of why I like listening to you, but at the same time, it doesn't get anywhere, because it's just you, after a while, pigeonholing them, which I agree, and it's fun to listen to, and if you've had a few beers, it's even more fun. But the simple fact is, it doesn't get as far as somebody like Mark that literally like keeps feeding them the rope, and they keep talking, which I don't like listening to 5 minutes of like bloviation. Yeah, and then says, hey, look, like this is the question that I asked, and this is how you've been redirecting, how you've been avoiding it. Like, let's get back to this. Because I mean, like Jack, you, and a lot of the others that just blow up, the conversation's over. I don't think I blow up. Blowing up.
I don't really think I blow up. I think I do.
Go back
certainly not like Jack.
I think I just do it more rudely. I think I point out when they're being dishonest. I think I keep it on track, and I think I point out when they're not answering questions. I think I think with me, it's not that what I'm doing is like wrong. Sure, it's not always effective. I don't think any method will be always effective. I just think I'm a little bit rude, but I think that at least, again, most people who have seen my engagements will say that I'm not rude when it's not justified.
But it typically stops the conversation, was my only
point. I
because,
don't think it does. I think it carries the conversation forward, because the reason I get that way is because the conversation isn't moving forward. They're refusing to provide clarification. They're refusing to answer questions. They're refusing to respond to objections. They're doing a bunch of things that do not carry the conversation forward.
So,
and I
Leo,
won't tolerate it. And I will pick them up and drag them forward if I have to. And if that involves a little bit of rudeness, then I'll do it.
Just Leo, and I'm going to back Leo up on this one, strangely enough, that I think that different people need different attitudes to be presented with. Some people do need to be cajoled into a corner and beaten with a science textbook like Leo does.
Agreed.
I think that someone that's really obnoxious and is just not answering Leo, it's not going to go anywhere. Like, it's just going to be shut down. And that's where a more sort of epistemology, like street epistemology approach like I do, is probably a better engagement. But that's not to say that's the right one in all circumstances. I think Leo's right. I think some people do need that. But I think that all of these methods that we're talking about, because you see some of the real great people like Aaron Ra will blow the hell up. He will basically call that person stupid straight to their face. And I think that's valid. And I think that the straight epistemology method is valid. I think there's a lot of different approaches and they're all valid. So I don't see Leo as doing anything wrong whatsoever. He's just got a different style than me, and that's fine. Yeah. That's perfect. Yeah.
I should also provide some clarification, because I'm making it seem like I do this like in every engagement. I would argue most of them that I don't get rude.
Everyone, every single one, you're rude. You're rude right now. You're always rude. Every single time.
But so understand, Leo, when you're getting really rude with people, because of those perfectly reasonable justifications, you're talking to pre-subs. I mean, let's be real.
Earth creation. Yeah, I'm talking to people who didn't come into the discussion to be like honest and genuine to begin with. Right. But I think that people will agree that I'm not rude right off the bat. It'll be about 10 or 15 minutes into the discussion when it's obvious that they're not answering the questions. They don't know what they're talking about. They don't want to provide clarification. They're not going to respond to what I'm saying. And it's like, once I realize somebody's like that, at least in my mind, what I'm seeing is, okay, I have to put a leash on this person and drag them through the rest of this intellectual park, don't I?
Well, I mean, look, I got a different approach. I just let them have enough rope to hang themselves with.
You just give them the leash and say, all right, got fun.
Yeah.
Because honestly, Leo, you're putting a leash on a cat.
No shit.
I enjoy.
Hey, I've seen people walking cats. Sorry, Sean. Go ahead, mate.
No, I was just gonna say I enjoy it. Like when you berate Sal or Otangelo. I mean, that's kind of like why we show up to watch those streams a lot of the time. And I don't think there's really any conversation worth having there after you've listened to like those two dudes or somebody like Kenny talk once or twice. Yeah, you just kind of know that there's no substance there, right? They're literally like just. They're hitting talking points that their audience or what little audience they have is going to take away, and say, oh yeah, this is what they attach onto. So it's fun to like watch you beat up on them, and especially after, you've been drinking or doing whatever. It's really it's a lot.
One of Maddox's streams.
It's a good time. Yeah.
Oh god.
I love it because you'll ask Otangelo just a straightforward 6-second question. So Otangelo, what is it? What standard are you using for determining something designed from not designed? And then 3 minutes in, he's going off about proteins, and you go to interrupt him because he hasn't answered your question. And all of a sudden, you get, okay, can I finish? Can I finish, please? Like, no, dude, you can't answer my question, please.
Because you'll never finish.
That's the thing with some of these people. Like, if you don't interrupt them, they literally will not stop. At all.
So, having talked to these guys, what's your opinion? Do you think that Otangelo and Sal understand how problematic their position is?
I think at least subconsciously they recognize many of, like, there's no fucking way by now that Otangelo has not sat and thought about some of the problems that have been raised to him. The issue is he's looking at it from the framework of, well, how can I overcome these problems and retain my worldview? Which is probably what, most people are going to do. Somebody came to me with an argument against naturalism. I'd look at it and go, okay, so how can I respond to this argument in a way that preserves my worldview? I mean, that's not a wrong thing to do, but when you do it to the extent that, like, that you don't have responses, that you don't have objections, yet you're going to just reject the argument so that you can maintain your only in virtue of maintaining your belief, that's when it's a problem. That's when you're dishonest.
So I understand that. But what about something like the Shroud? Do you think he actually legitimately believes any of the bullshit that comes out of his mouth about the Shroud? Or
yeah, I do. Okay. Unfortunately, I do.
Well, somebody sent me a message recently, and it was sort of that even the Catholic Church doesn't accept the Shroud. Now, I looked this up because that was one of the fascinating comments that was left. Apparently, they don't reject it, but they don't accept it either, which sort of speaks real volumes.
But they
about
won't let any further experiments be done on it either.
Correct.
That I think kind of reveals a bit.
I want to run something by you all. I've got somebody in the backstage.
Oh, please don't. No, Mark, you know who it is.
I do know who it is. I do. And so I want to know how crazy you want this stream to get, really.
I'm just going to stay silent because it ain't worth it in my opinion.
It's
crazy really is my wheelhouse.
It is? Okay. So do we want to have ultimatum?
Well, I just want to say before he comes in, I think that well, biblically, what we should do. I'm sorry.
That's who this is?
Oh, is that who that is?
Yep.
Who is it?
Yeah.
Yes, let's do it.
Judeo-Christian.
Been a while.
Who is it really, though?
Stream with them.
The guy who is Jesus' lover.
Hello, ultimated Judeo-Christian. How are you? Welcome to my 500 sub mini celebration and AMA. Do you have anything that you would like to ask me, preferably not religious based?
Well, yes, thanks for having me on. Well, I was going to ask you if you would like to hear my argument proving.
No.
Yeah, we're not here for that, bro.
No.
Well, you're talking about it, so you're mentioning the Shroud.
Wait, what?
So you were talking about it.
I was mentioning the Shroud. Do you have something to ask about the Shroud?
Well, that's a religious topic.
Well, not really. It's
one, yes.
More a burial wear topic, really. More funeral fashion than religion, but sure.
You could say it's a fabricated topic.
Nice.
Oh fucking God, dude. I'll put him backstage.
Nice.
Nah, end the stream. It's done. We finished the internet. It's done.
Okay.
Do we just shut off the internet and start it back up again?
My question will be based on reality.
Uh-huh.
So we share the same reality.
So I presume we do, but how do you know we share the same reality?
Because we are talking now.
Well, how do you know we're not just a brain in a vat with those signals being plugged into the various sensory organelles of your brain to make you think like you're talking to somebody? How do you know that's not the case?
Because our God didn't create
what God?
This universe like that?
Well, no, but you can't actually demonstrate that we're not a brain in a vat. So if you are a brain in a vat, no. If you are a brain in a vat, I
just debunked your response.
No. If you are a brain in a vat, that concept of God has merely been fed into you by a computer.
Hang on, you've just contradicted yourself. You've just contradicted yourself.
Because honestly, I didn't create the universe that way. So I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't do it like that.
God is not a concept by definition. God is pure actuality.
No, it is. It is a concept by definition.
That's just vacuous. That's just vacuous.
Hang on,
you've just contradicted yourself.
So God that I'm talking about, no. The God that I'm talking about is the concept that's been plugged into your brain, which is currently in a vat and just having things.
You're contradicting yourself.
No, I'm not.
God is not a conception. God is concrete.
Wait, hold on. God is concrete?
Contradicting yourself. Yeah, a concrete particular.
So God stands in causal relations then. What does he stand in causal relations with, and how can you show me this?
Yeah, I could show you this through a syllogism, an argument.
Well, no. Syllogisms are conceptual argumentation. I'm asking for empirical demonstration of the causative relations that which God stands in with some object. Give me that object and show me the relation.
It's a categorical.
No,
syllogism.
you made the claim that God is concrete. To be concrete means to stand in causal relations. So
it's an
show me the object that God stands in causative relations with, and show me that causative relation such that you can determine that it's God that stands in it.
Yes. Are you aware that you're presupposing?
No, don't ask me
God?
questions.
I'm asking
Substantiate
a
your
clarifying
claim,
question.
please.
You don't need to
I'm
ask
asking
him questions to
it's a
substantiate. No.
clarifying question.
Ultimated. You don't need to ask questions to answer his. Okay, so
I'm
it's not a
asking
clarifying. No.
it is.
We all know it's not a clarifying question because you're trying to state.
Hang on.
something.
You don't speak on behalf of other people. Allow me to.
Okay. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, that was probably a good call.
I'm sorry, but
look,
that one statement just really
So-
concrete. Okay,
Hold
show
it,
it to me.
Hold it. I've just got to get him back.
Sorry,
one
Mark.
sec. By the way, Ultimated, just be aware that the way that you've set up StreamYard, when you click on you can see your full name. I won't give it out, but just be aware that some people may dox you because you've put your full name. I know you've got a problem with people knowing your name, so just be aware it comes
Not really.
up on StreamYard. Yeah, just be aware of that, okay?
My name is
What my name is? What my name is? What my name is? Slim Shady.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I had to.
Now, the next
That's
person we
fair.
have is Dr. Jill. Is this
Oh.
actually Jill?
Oh,
Are you ready,
Jesus
Mark?
Christ.
Are you ready?
Oh, I'm
Hold on,
always
hold on,
ready.
hold
Buckle
on.
up, buddy.
Before Jill even enters the conversation, the only question I have for Jill is the Bible the inerrant word of God or not? Period.
So,
Okay. Well,
so
we
I
can
just want
certainly
to,
cover that.
Mark, before you bring Jill in, I just want to say, like, Leo, these are the people that I enjoy watching you dialogue with.
Okay.
Because, and who did the guy that was just here get kicked out of recently? Somebody, was that you, Mark?
I don't know. I don't do many live streams kind of thing where I have open rooms or anything, so it's unlikely to be me. It might have been maybe Amy's or something like that, perhaps.
No, it wasn't a live stream. It was like he was brought in on a one-on-one, and whoever was
Oh
talking
yeah.
to him literally
That
like,
was when I was talking to, that was on Atheist Junior's stream, I think, and he
I
went
think,
on
yeah.
a whole bunch of stuff, and then he this presup of, oh well, if God is defined as how I define it, then you've got to don't agree with your definition, and I don't have to. Your definition of God isn't.
I can't get past the voice, let alone any of the bullshit that comes out of his mouth.
Australian accent. Yeah, Australian accents are annoying, right? They're just annoying.
It's not an accent. It's like
they are the worst.
They are not the worst.
No.
Well, here we go, and let's talk to.
Man,
Dr.
you guys are
Jill.
afraid of me so much. Why do you have to give people warnings when you let me into streams? Am I that? Are you that afraid of
No,
me?
it's so that we can get
that
to talk
afraid
to
of my ideas?
No,
Something like that,
it's
Jill.
just that a lot of the time you're very difficult to have a reasonable conversation with.
Yes,
because,
you are.
Like our debate, yeah.
When we were setting up the debate, it took 23 emails in order to set it up, which is just an incredible amount.
Maybe a bit much.
What about the actual debate?
Yeah. So you have a tendency.
How did you do in that debate, Mark?
Troll people and stuff.
Pretty well.
I think I did pretty well.
He did quite well, actually.
I want to answer Wilberforce's question. Yes.
Okay, which version?
You might have to be more specific there, Jill. What are you a doctor of, Jill? I gotta know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Well, identify as a doctor, a PhD.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, we can do that? All right. I've got something for you guys.
Yes, we can do that. If you can identify as a woman, yes.
So we can identify as whatever we want?
That's right. Yeah.
Cool. I'm God. You're wrong.
Yeah.
Wait, I'm sorry, Jill. Are you not a woman?
Prove it.
No, I'm asking.
Define what a woman is first.
No,
a woman is any person who identifies with a large enough subset of the attributes or the characteristics that are typically socially associated with the concept of femininity.
Okay, replace the word woman with PhD. Thank you, Theo.
Okay.
But that's not what a PhD is. PhD is somebody who has earned a particular defined credential from an accredited institution.
Yeah.
Jill, is that a standard you accept?
What's your analogy here?
If I can identify as a woman, I can identify as a PhD.
No, you can't. A PhD is a qualification, not an identity.
A woman is an identity.
Well,
yes,
I mean, if
but a PhD is not.
A woman is an identity? Is that your argument?
Woman,
Leo?
yes, is a gender,
That's your
and genders
Okay,
are forms
so-
of expressive identities.
All right, stop.
I'm sorry.
We're not going to be
gosh.
discussing this. This isn't going to be the conversation in the stream. I think, Jill, if you want to call yourself a doctor, you can call yourself a doctor. It doesn't
Exactly.
make you
It's
one. but
2022,
sure.
guys. Come on with the bigotry.
Yeah. So, Jill, if you've
Yeah,
just
it's
come
not-
here to troll, I'm just gonna, dump you.
Well,
Are
I'm
you
curious, actually, can we get back to the question of which version of the Bible is the infallible Word of God?
Are you gonna kick me like you did the last Christian?
Well,
if
biblically,
you're
that was a you thought they were a Christian?
Biblically, yes, he's a Christian. I love biblically. I love him. Yeah. He's one of the best apologists on the
do you
internet.
love him like he loves Jesus, and apparently Jesus loves him?
Yeah.
Do you support
Oh wait,
that?
he's the dude that masturbates to Jesus.
Apparently,
he claims to have a
Oh, wow.
physical, intimate relationship with Jesus.
The only
That's
tactics
who that-
for the
okay,
left,
that's
the
who
only
that guy is.
tactics you have
Yeah.
left is smear campaigns. You're afraid to debate us.
What are you talking
You're
about?
just
Debate you
done.
on what?
do you mean?
Just done. You're
What
just
do you want
just
to
had
debate
a-
on?
you're
A
just here in
pretty
an echo
simple
chamber.
question,
That's all you
Bill.
have is an echo chamber.
You want to debate on Do you want to debate on what a woman is, Jill? I'll debate you on that.
So
I
you
honestly
already told me
just,
what a woman was.
I'm
not
just curious
gonna
about what the
Yeah,
answer to
there
my
you are,
question
running
is.
away.
Yeah. So which version
you've already
is
told me
the
what a woman is.
infallible?
We
No,
disagree. We
Jill.
fundamentally
I
disagree.
already said we're not having this conversation. So stop
Right, Leo
bringing
brought it up
back
again. I was
What?
responding to
Well,
Leo. Yeah, so you should have
let's
directed
put
your.
it aside. So, can you actually answer Wilberforce's question, which was which version of the Bible is the inerrant Word of God? Was his question?
Well, first of all, he needs to know what we mean by inerrant. I did a video.
I know what inerrant means. I've read
What
it.
does inerrant
knows
mean? What does it mean when we say inerrant?
What, you have a proprietary definition of inerrant?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, then describe it to me, because I don't know what's in your head.
Okay. According to scholars, okay, what is
No.
meant
What's
by
yours?
I'm using the definition that Erickson and
Who's-
Sodom. Yeah, these are scholars in the field, and they are the ones who are the textual critics. So I'm going to
What's
rely
your
on them
definition?
for their definition. Inerrancy,
What's
there's
your
three
definition?
things. Inerrancy includes three things: the doctrine or the teaching that the Bible is fully truthful in all of its teachings.
Okay.
That's according to Erickson. The inerrancy of Scripture also means that the original manuscripts do not affirm anything that is contrary to fact, or Grudem also, and also the
Okay.
Bible tells the truth about what it intends to tell the truth about. That's
Okay.
according
So
to,
the original manuscripts, repeat that again?
yeah, the scripture in the original manuscripts does not affirm anything that is contrary to fact. Now, the great thing is
And
that
you know they're the original manuscripts because?
What?
You know they're the original manuscripts because how?
The science of textual criticism has compared copy to copy, and it's gotten back to the autograph.
The oldest known
You're
form.
going to get as close as you're going to get.
Wait, so you accept the
Okay.
Gospels were not
as
authored
close
by
as
the-
you're gonna get.
Yes,
Which is
So-
the
to
original.
the original.
So
There are no
that's-
original
but that's
documents.
not-
of
So
any
you don't
ancient
have the
text.
original. So you
There
don't
are
have
no
the
original documents of any ancient
Oh, okay.
text.
So then the
You
second
don't have the original.
part of your
There are no
definition
original documents
is
of any
invalid.
ancient text. So scholars don't even consider that to be something to weigh in as far as authenticity.
Right.
Yeah.
So
So you
the second
don't have
part-
the original.
Okay.
Right.
No
So
ancient
that second part's
manuscript has
invalid.
an original.
So Jill,
Scholars
do you
don't
have
care
the
about
original?
that.
Do you have
Scholars
the
don't
original?
use that as criteria. Use what
I don't
scholars
care.
use,
I'm
not
asking
your
you-
own criteria.
Jill, I'm asking you a question. Do you have the original?
No
text?
one has the original of any
Then
ancient
it's
document.
no, right? Then the answer is no, right?
You know what the textual scholars have
No.
determined
It's a yes or
when
no
it comes
question,
to
Jill.
the.
Do you have the original?
I've already
text?
answered that. No,
No, you haven't. You've
original
blown your
manuscript
mind. That's all you've done.
exists. No original manuscript. I've
Then
answered 5 times already.
How
No
do you
any
know that the
manuscript.
text you have says the
Any
same as
ancient
the
manuscript.
original? How do you know that the text you have says the same as the
Scholars have to compare copy
Well, in
to
his fairness,
copy.
he
It's
didn't
called the
claim that.
science of textual criticism. Look it up. Just like you
It says
didn't
it's
know about
inerrant.
biblical slavery.
Wait,
you
Jill,
didn't know
so
about
you're going with
anything
what the
to
textual
do with
scholars
these
Joe,
say?
we've
topics.
never talked before, so you
That
don't know
here,
what I know about
I'm
biblical
talking
slavery.
to Mark Reed. He doesn't
you-
know about
You
these
go with what the
topics,
textual
but
critics
but he
say,
comes
though,
in
right?
to debate them.
You go so you like to look at the what the textual critics say, right, Jill?
Yes, textual critics.
So do you
scholars.
agree with them that the Gospels were not authored by the names attributed to them?
the names attributed to the gospel. Again, red herrings.
No. I
Propping up
asked you a
straw
question.
mans. I'm
Do you?
It's a
answering.
valid point.
You were citing
Can
the
I answer
textual
you?
critics.
Can I answer you?
And so what I'm wanting to know, and you
Can
just
I answer
claimed
you?
that
I heard
you
your
tend
question.
to
Can I answer
agree
you without you
with
cutting me
them.
off?
So what I'm
I
wanting to
heard
know is if you agree with the
I heard
textual
your
critics
question.
and like the whole of consensus scholarship when they say that the Gospels were not authored by the names.
I heard your question.
attributed to them,
Can
or
I
by the
answer it now
people
without you
attributed to them.
interrupting? Thank you. The idea that the authorship is something that scholars actually use to determine authenticity
I
is
didn't
a
say
red
any. I didn't
herring.
ask you about that.
Is
I
a
didn't
red
ask you about
herring.
authenticity.
Okay.
I didn't mention
Did
anything
Mark
about
Mark?
authenticity.
Hold on, let me finish.
Talk about
So,
dodging questions.
Okay, Jill, you've got to answer the question. You're going way off to that kind of
I'm
thing.
answering the
Like,
question.
No, you're
Allow
not.
me to
I didn't
answer
ask
the
you
question.
about authenticity.
don't
All I asked
unmute
you.
yourself, mate. Don't unmute yourself. All right.
So, well, oh.
Just give
I
him a
was gonna
sec. Give
ask
him
a
a sec.
different-
So,
I was
Jill,
about to ask a different
you see,
question.
just in the backstage
Oh,
now,
okay.
Jill. Like, if Leo asks a question, you can't just go off to some other topic where you think he's leading to. Okay, just answer the question. I'll get
Mark,
you back on. And
Mark, how did she answer your question though? Because I didn't really understand that. Because you said,
a conversation
have-
requires
the originals. I think he's saying no,
listening.
but he doesn't want to actually say no. So he
convers-
sort of says that doesn't. Hold it a sec, Jill. I've just asked a question. So he wants to say, he says no, basically, but he doesn't want to actually articulate the word no. So instead he goes, that's not important to scholars. So he's basically jumping ahead where he thinks I'm going to go, where it's just, all I'm asking is like whether we have the originals. The answer is in fact no.
right, but that's
Doesn't
what
want to say
confuses.
that.
We do not
That's
have
what
any originals. Yeah.
Hold on, that
And,
confuses
yeah.
me though. Hold on.
Do I get a chance to answer the question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
If I'm
sorry.
not
Just-
going to be able to answer questions,
Just
we're
wait
just
for
going to continue.
wait for Jill to answer
Okay.
Leo's question. So could
Maybe
you
you
answer
can- you
Leo's
guys can-
question?
Well, I'd first like him to recapitulate my question so that I know he understands it properly.
You guys can talk among yourselves in your echo chamber. Since you don't want answers, you can answer
Bill,
on
you're
your
in
own
here. Just
what you've already
answer
believed.
the question.
Yeah.
No, I want you to answer. I just want to make sure that you know what the question is that you're
Yeah,
answering. Otherwise, your
question.
answer would be
Repeat the
meaningless. So can you tell me what my question was and then give your answer, please?
Repeat
Go
the
ahead.
question. I was put
So
backstage.
you claim that you go with what the textual critics are saying here. So what I want to know is if you agree with them when they say that the names attributed to the authors are not who the authors were, or the names attributed to the Gospels are not who authored them.
Okay. That's a fundamental misunderstanding of ancient scribal textual writing.
No, it's not.
The authors, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, including Paul himself, admit that they did not pen or write what we are reading today.
So
Paul
what you're
even
saying is,
hold
yes,
on,
you
can
do
I
agree.
finish?
Hold it, Leo.
my
Leo,
answer,
just let him
please?
finish.
I don't really
Can
want
I
like a
finish
beat around
my
the bush
please?
answer that doesn't really answer
Can I
it.
finish
It seems
my
he's
answer?
saying yes.
Hold on.
Can I finish my answer without being cut off?
Yes, you can finish your
Thank you.
non-answer. Go ahead.
Thank you. So the idea to deposit this as an argument is a red herring. Scholars do not determine whose name is on the text as opposed to
That wasn't what I asked.
We would determine today that if your name is on a book, that you are responsible for actually penning it. Actually, that's not even true because we have editors today. So no, the names don't represent the
You don't think there
scribes.
were editors?
We
So
don't
what you're
have the
saying is
names.
that the names on the Gospels are not the authors of the Gospels.
No, because
you
the
are
scribes,
okay. So your
because they
answer is
were
no.
written by scribes. It was written by scribes. Scribes wrote.
What I don't
as
understand
they
is
were
why didn't
dictated.
Jill just say
to-
yes? I agree with the textual
Yes.
critics when they say
Scribe,
that the
yes,
names
I
attributed
agree.
to the Gospels are not the authors.
And
I
they
don't know why he
also
didn't
say
just say that.
because
Does anybody else
also
here know why he didn't
because
just say
it's a
that?
lie.
Everybody knows
It's a
why
lie
he
by
didn't just
it's
say
a
that.
lie by omission. That's why. Because they also say that the reason why this is the case is because
Yeah, but
it
I
was
didn't
written
ask you
by
why it was
scribes.
the case, did I?
It's because it was written by scribes. So you're lying by omission because you're a
What did
liberal.
I lie about?
What was it that I Scribes
lied
can't
about?
mistranslate
liberals
anything.
What was it that I lied about?
That's what liberals do.
What
Lying
was it
by
that I lied about?
omission. Not telling
What
the
was it that I
audience.
omitted?
Yeah, let me explain. Not telling the audience that yes, these writings were not the people who actually penned it, because the people who actually penned it were hired scribes. That's
Yeah, but
a
that
lie by
wasn't the
omission.
question that I asked you. So why would I?
Who were
And it doesn't
incapable
It doesn't work on seasoned apologists. Try that somewhere else. Try that in the
Jill.
college dormitories.
Jill, is a hired scribe capable of writing something different than the person dictating to them?
Is a hired no, because they're being dictated to. That was their job. That's like saying as an
Okay.
editor going to
So
write
people are
something
incapable
send
of
to the
not
editor.
doing their job.
Is a okay, so now you're bringing up skepticism about the
No.
scribes. Who I mean,
No.
do you have any evidence
You're
against the
claiming
Bible
that it is in
instead of
fact the
conspiracy theories?
original word. You're claiming that you know somehow it is the original text.
It is.
And is exactly the same. But it was written by scribes who were there doing a job.
Right.
When everybody who's ever interacted with another human being knows that sometimes people get hired to do a job and they do a piss poor job at it.
Which is why we have thousands of copies to compare in light of each other.
That's neat.
And that's called the science of textual criticism. So they all make mistakes.
A copy of a copy is going to be mostly the same as the original.
Can I finish my thought, please? Do you guys want to have a conversation? Right? Do I have to go into a Christian channel to have a conversation?
Is this subtle gaslighting? Is that what this is?
Do I have to go to a Christian channel to have a conversation?
The best-selling. You know what? The most printed book of the last 100 years is The Lord of the Rings. So I guess it must be true.
Changing my name because he has hatred for Christians. Christians can't have a PhD.
Hatred.
Christians,
I didn't even notice
he makes
that.
a false dichotomy between faith and reason. That's why you're an atheist.
What does that even mean, dude?
In your miserable lives.
You know what,
as an
Jill? Just
atheist.
because I'm interested, and I'd like to humor myself and perhaps other people. When you talk about reason, what is it that you're referring to?
Well, I'd like to respond to Wilberforce because I was cut off before I had a chance.
Okay, no, that's fine. That's fine. Go ahead.
Okay, so scholars have determined by comparing these copies where the errors lie. They all don't make the same spelling and grammatical errors. So by comparing copy to copy, we can through that comparison, we can get back to the mother copy, and that's what we've done. That's what you read when you go online.
The first dictated version that we're aware of.
I can care less about your conspiracy theories.
Not even the original. It's not even the original copy. So I think what is pointed out a lot, and I believe Dr. Bart Ehrman points this out a lot, is that because we don't have the originals, we've got no way to know how the first copy we has changed from the originals. Because the only way you can tell if any changes were made between the very originals and the copy you have is to have both copies. Now, you can surmise and do some probabilistic statements about how accurate it may have been. However, you can't know with any kind of certainty that some of the things in there weren't made up. You just can't know that.
Right. Well, we don't.
Just
really
a quick add off to what you said,
don't really
Mark.
care about conspiracy.
It's amazing that Jill didn't know that, yet he's talking about how we don't understand textual criticism. I find that very interesting.
I know I have the QAnon here on my emblem, but we don't really care about your conspiracy theory, liberal. We don't care about your blue and on.
You think I'm a liberal? You actually think I'm a liberal?
Oh, somebody could have changed it. Prove it.
Jill. The problem is
prove it was changed.
Jill,
prove it legendary corruption. Prove it.
Prove it.
Stop. Jill, the problem is that you call anybody that disagrees with you a liberal, right? As soon as they disagree with you, they're a liberal, and it's this. Wait, and it's this ad hominem behavior that you display, calling people stuff that they may not be, that gets you into trouble, and why no one wants to talk with you because you do this to people.
Who in here voted for Biden? Raise your hand.
I don't vote.
I'm in Australia, Jill. How could I vote for Biden?
Right. There are other people in the room. Mark. We know you're
Biden determines everything about your political beliefs. How cute.
I don't vote.
What about you, Leo?
This has gotten so far away from his original.
This is what's called
an ad hominem.
So
this is what's
sorry, hang on. Sean, go ahead, Sean. You were talking.
So the first point was, we don't have an original, but he believes the Bible's based on the original because of textual criticism, correct? Was that your answer?
The science of textual criticism has determined or gotten back to the mother copy based on the corpus of manuscripts. Over 6,000 New Testament copies of the New Testament were able to compare copy to copy. And when you say the original, there was no book called the Bible. These are all manuscripts. These are all
Jill,
different
I'm talking about, we don't
traditions.
have, you said we don't have any original manuscripts whatsoever. So out of the 66 or however many books are in your particular Bible, if we don't have any original copies, you simply stand on the ground of textual criticism, says
Mhm.
this is as close to the original as I get, and I believe that that's what I
Right.
missed,
We
because
also
that
have other
week,
we also have other traditions that confirm or validate what the text is saying. So we have outside traditions, we have inside traditions, external or internal evidence, and they all confirm, and they all come together to give us what we call the Bible today. So
Hey,
we don't have a
Jill.
problem with that. Textual critics don't have a problem with
and your
not having
first
the
point,
originals. In fact, there are no originals for any ancient manuscript.
right,
So
that's my
that's
point.
not an issue.
That's why I'm not a Christian. It's because you don't have any original. You just,
Okay. Well,
excuse
that's
me,
fine.
the Christians don't have anything to base other than copies of what Mark was talking about with
Okay.
Airman. But the
All right.
bigger point that I wanted to make was, when you made your first 3 points, it leaves a lot of room for leeway for you to maneuver around, right? Like, so
Funnily.
give me that first point that you said. You
Well,
gave 3 points. What was the first one?
I'm not sure what.
Like, the Bible doesn't say anything that's not factual,
Oh,
or
okay. Yeah. This is actually Grudem, who's a biblical scholar or a textual critic.
so
The Bible
regardless, what
always
was the
tells the
first one?
truth, and it always tells the truth concerning everything it talks about. Because a straw man that atheists love to prop up is, well, it
So
doesn't talk about
regardless,
this, or it
hold on,
doesn't talk
let's,
about that, or it
Jill,
doesn't talk about
I'm
this.
so
So
sorry. I don't
yeah, you're so sorry to cut me
I
off.
don't
Yeah.
I don't I might not care about any of
You're
that
not
stuff. I
sorry.
might not understand it, but
Yeah.
I'm not going to apologize to you. Anyway,
Oh,
long
of
story
course
short,
not. You're a liberal.
The
so
Yeah.
reason why
to
he cut,
me,
hang on just a
Can't
second. The
stand
reason
truth.
why he cut you off, Jill, is because saying that atheists do this, that, and the other is a straw man. You're just
Right.
straw manning where
It
he's
doesn't
coming
mean he's an
to
atheist.
Jill, to me, Jesus Christ, to me, Jill, it sounds like you're saying, when you say that, or the guy that you got it from, when he says the Bible, it sounded like you just said the Bible doesn't say anything that's not true, that it doesn't say that's not true.
Well, let me read the quote again. This is coming from an actual scholar. This is a simple definition of inerrancy. The Bible always tells the truth, and that it always tells the truth concerning everything it talks about.
Okay, stop right there. So to me, that sounds like you're just saying whatever the Bible says is true because the Bible says it's true, or whatever's in the Bible is true because
No,
the Bible
no,
says it's true.
that's not what Erickson is saying,
Well,
or
I
that's
have
not what.
some specific questions
Right.
regarding
No.
that
Okay,
that I
awesome.
want
Thanks, Nitty.
Jill's answer to, because let's start with something simple, and maybe you can predict what I'm going to ask you about what the New Testament contains. Okay, do you think you might have an idea what I might ask you about in terms of inerrancy? And okay, how did
Yeah.
Judas die?
Did Judas die?
No, how did Judas die?
How did Judas die? Judas
Mhm.
died according to the text by he. Oh, it's a long story. You have to read all
Oh,
of the
isn't it?
synoptics to get the full story. Another trope is reading the text as if they are one account and not reading them as a collective account, which are complementary, and then trying to pin different details in the story against each other as if they were supposed to be happening at the same time, and therefore contradiction. Right? You have no
So we're
contradictions
not
in
going
the
to
Bible.
answer the question
There are
then.
no contradictions in the Bible. Judas first hung himself, and then he died, of course, after hanging himself, and then his body fell headlong and burst open,
That's right.
according to the
He
text.
then like flipped upside down and exploded, kind of.
Flip. He didn't say, the text didn't say he flipped upside
Well,
down.
headlong would be
Right.
going
Yeah.
head
If you're
Head
direction
first.
first.
if you're hanging, right? If you're hanging, are you swinging also? Most likely. Yes.
So he's just like a punching bag wiggling around in the
Yeah. He
wind, and
could have
then
fell on
woo!
some rocks. Right. He could have
Good.
fell off a cliff and hit his head and
Yes.
burst. Yeah.
I
No problem.
love
Yeah. That's what the
complementary
text says. Yeah. It
gospel
doesn't. Yeah.
stories that we
But now you're just
Frankenstein
adding the gospel
together.
according to Jill.
No, that's the
Yeah,
gospel
this is
according
the
to the
great.
Gospels.
This
Read
is
it.
the
Okay, they're called synoptic for a reason. For homework, I want you guys to look up. I'm a school teacher, so I can
Don't
give you
give me
homework.
homework.
For
No, you're
homework, I
not.
want you guys to look up the word synoptic. Okay, that'll help you when you're reading the
all right.
gospel.
So, all right,
They
let's
complement
say,
each other. They don't contradict.
okay, let's say I just grant you that one amongst the gospels. Okay, you found a way to craft those narratives together so that they make cogent sense, that they don't have anything
Zero
contradictory in
contradictions.
it. Sure. Okay, fine. So when you start looking at things like how many people saw the risen Jesus in the tomb, like
How many people?
should we try
Want me
to
to count
pin
them all?
a specific number of people on Resurrection Day or not? What do you think?
Wait, are you talking about Resurrection Day? Are you talking about the empty tomb?
The empty tomb,
The
yeah.
women to the tomb?
How many?
How many women? Let me count. You have to read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John to find out how many women were there in all, because the accounts
I
are
think he asked how many
complementary.
people.
Right. How many people?
I don't know how many people at all. I'd have to go into the text and look at the narrative again and get you an exact number. But
so
the
I
text
want
is not
to.
designed
You know
to
what?
tell you
Okay.
how
So
many people were, how many angels were. Bart Ehrman tries this. Now, notice Bart Ehrman only uses this trope for atheists on the internet.
Yeah,
and
Nitty,
he
you're going to
sells
have to interrupt him if you want to keep him on track. I'm just going to tell you that right now.
well,
Like,
and he
you've
sells
answered the
books this
question
way.
good enough that you're basically going to say the text. What's interesting to me that you just said was that the text isn't designed to give us an exact number. Now, what's fascinating to me is that
that's not my claim.
you did say that.
No.
You did
No,
say that the
what I'm
singular
saying is that
gospels.
no. Listen, please listen.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that one of the gospels, in of itself or by itself, isolated from all of the rest of the whole text, or the rest of the synoptic gospels, is not designed to tell you the entire story. You put the pieces of the puzzle or the details of each of the gospels together to flush out the entire story. That's why their scholars call them synoptic. That's your homework tonight.
Wait, but
don't come to school tomorrow without your
I have an
homework.
interesting
man.
question about that. Why are you saying that there are four texts that or sorry, three texts of the synoptics? Because John is not synoptic by most scholarly consensus.
Three
So
texts,
when I was a Christian, okay. So why are there three unique textual traditions? Well, I'll put it that way, that are required to have a whole story. Why does God need three rather than one?
Well, that's a fallacy. I can't remember which one, but if God decides that's the way He wants to communicate,
it's a
intentional
non-determined fallacy.
Intentional,
really?
Intentional. Is that the intentional fallacy, Leo? So if
don't.
God decides,
what the fuck is in it? What all fallacies are generally considered to be
I don't know,
intentional, largely at least.
if God decides that's the way He wants to communicate, then why can't He do it that way? So you're just asking a question of why God does it the way He wants to do it. Does He wants to do it that way?
So in order, I just want to be clear.
Okay, wow.
What fallacy is that, Leo? You're the expert.
That's not a fallacy, but I think I could be wrong, but I think the point is that Nitty's getting at is God's going to have reasons for having done it the way that He did, right?
Is that what you're trying to say, Joe?
I think that's the best way. I don't have a problem with it. I think it's pretty cool that he actually used three different people to tell the same story. Now, had the story been all the same details, what would the skeptics say then? Come on, guys, put your skeptic hats on. Collusion. Thank you very much.
Well, thank
you very much.
Precisely
You did your homework.
Reason that I don't think that the synoptics are the inerrant word of God is the word for word copying that seems to be occurring from the Gospel of Mark. So if these were truly independent or unique attestations, there is no necessity for having word for word copying, and not just the Gospel of Mark, by the way. The other synoptic traditions of Matthew and Luke go into the Old Testament and copy lines word for word from other prophetic parts. That just shows that they're aware of older texts copying. That's it. They're making shit up.
They're not making it up if they're getting the sources. If the Times gets the source from CNN, they're not making it
Hmm.
up. They're getting a source from someone who has
But
information.
if
What's
the
wrong with
source
So,
that?
is
Joe, I
wrong,
would
hang on,
assume that.
What's wrong with that?
If the source is wrong, then every copy down the line is wrong. If CNN
Yeah, that's a
gets their
conspiracy
stuff
theory.
from BBC,
Yeah,
no. It's just your own
What
logic. It's
people
just
do.
basically
show me more than a
if
conspiracy.
they have a copy of something that is wrong, then every single copy is wrong. It doesn't add to the probability that
Give
it's
me more
correct.
than conditional.
It basically makes the same probability it's correct that the original is right.
Give me
So
more than a
you've just
hypothetical or conditional. If
no.
my mother had a
That's
penis,
called
she'd
so
be my father.
Jill,
the
have you
fallacy.
given anything
Hang on.
but that?
Hang on. The fallacy that you're currently committing, because I can name fallacies, is shifting the burden of proof. You've got to
Shifting the burden.
demonstrate that what happened in the Bible actually happened. I don't have to
Oh, I do?
demonstrate anything.
Can you demonstrate what happened at 9/11 actually happened?
That's shifting the
oh
burden
my
of proof.
god!
How do you do that?
And it's
Why-
already
So to acts
Wow.
of impossibility like that stretches credulity to suggest that the Christian is supposed to somehow manage to find evidence to prove to you that it's something that happened 2,000 years ago when you can't even prove 9/11 happened 10 years or 20 years ago.
Okay,
It stretches credulity beyond breaking point, and it demonstrates how desperate you are, Mark.
no, but this is the point of the truth thing that I struggle with, right? Because when you say we can prove that parts of 9/11 happened, but what you're talking about, so if I say, sure, we can prove a plane flew into a building, or we can prove the buildings come down, or we can prove how many people died, or we can videotapes, death certificates, people that were there, we can do a lot of stuff, photographs.
CGI.
But Jill, this is the point that I'm making is you're going to boil it down to, well, that's not the truth that I'm talking about. And you've defined truth in the Bible, I think. So Nitty, we can talk all day about the discrepancies in the Bible or the stories
I'm not trying to
there are none.
anything. But
Come to my channel. We'll do a one-on-one. Bring all of your discrepancies, your top three,
he's gonna
and I'll
say,
destroy them promptly.
Literally, Nitty,
Succinctly.
when you just said, hey, look, here are 3 problems that I have within these 3 different books, he said, no, that's not the truth. The truth is when you put them all together, that's the truth. So whatever we say, he's going to say that's not the truth. He has the truth.
No, whatever you say, I'm going to say respect the scholarship, and if they call them synoptic, respect that. Don't try to read them as 3 accounts that are trying to tell the same details. When scholars say that they're not intended to tell the same details, that's why they're called synoptic. Be respectful of the scholarship concerning this, and not your atheist YouTube internet.
Jill. Okay, so the problem is that when you're saying respect the scholarship, you're basically saying respect the scholarship that I agree with, and ignore all the other scholarship that says, well, I want to have my piece here, Jill. Don't respect, Bart Ehrman or these other scholars, Richard Carrier, people like this who do work that disagree with you, and you want to ignore all of them. Because when you actually go back and see, was it the original? No, they're not the original. Do we know who wrote them? Traditionally, the church attributes them to these authors, but we don't know exactly who wrote them, and there is no records and no confirmation of knowing who actually wrote them. All of that together means that not only can we not compare them, the originals, to see if they are in fact inerrant, we can't do that. The other problem is that we can't see who wrote them actually had any credibility, that when you're talking about anecdotal evidence like people's stories, you want to see that they have credibility. And not only do we not be able to check for credibility, we also don't even know who it is to check that's credible for. So all of that together sort of makes that we don't necessarily trust that the Bible is inerrant about anything.
Look, I understand that. I understand you have skepticism. I have skepticism about 9/11. I have skepticism about JFK being shot, Martin Luther King, Michael Brown. No, I know what happened to Michael Brown. He was a thug. But it's okay to have skepticism.
This is way off the topic.
That's not why I'm here.
I'm here. Well, this is not Jill. This is not Jill. This is not the Jill show. Okay, this is not your show. This is not what you're doing. We're here to celebrate that I actually made 500 subscribers, which you haven't even mentioned at all.
I'm sorry. That's not something that I would even.
This isn't you get to come in here and just accuse people of stuff and bring up whatever you want and then act like an ass.
Okay.
This is here so we can have a really nice conversation, which was happening before you arrived. And then you've sort of got the temerity of going, oh, you think I make things difficult? Yeah, Jill, you make things difficult.
I do
That's
make things
exactly
difficult for your arguments. Yeah, we see that.
No, nobody was having an argument here until you came in. So I think I'll allow you to ask one more question, and then we will bid Jill adieu. Or
all right.
What was your name?
So tell me. I was interested to know what Bart Ehrman disagrees with me on, because the things that you mentioned that Bart Ehrman brings up are irrelevant. So, what was it that Bart Ehrman? No.
Bart Ehrman did an entire video, and I'll answer this last question. Bart Ehrman did an entire video saying that basically you don't know what parts of the Bible have actually been added, like the Pentecostal being able to handle snakes or being able to talk in tongues, because we don't have the originals. It may be that the entire Sermon on the Mount, some of your favorite passages from there, were completely made up. It may be that all of the passages from the singers were all made up. And so this whole idea that it's inerrant may in fact not describe reality as it happened there. So that's why he disagrees with what you say. Cheers. Thanks for coming, Jill.
So,
really great to have
I'll let you guys
on.
get back to your show. Thanks for having me on.
So here's something I want to say.
Already kicked you, buddy. Already kicked you.
Is I don't think there's a single thing that I could present right now, anyway, that could change a person like that's mind. And
he's just trolling.
Just trolling. And the other thing too, though, is like I don't like it when people like that interact with me, and when I bring up issues with like the text or things like that, it's not coming from a place of I hate this book, or I don't want to listen, or like I don't like every single idea in it. Like Jill, if you're listening, I actually enjoy some parts of the Bible still. I like having these conversations. If I didn't like these conversations, I'd delete my fucking channel. Like,
there are some good lessons in there, sort of. There are some pretty good lessons to be taken from the Bible.
You should delete your channel, though, Nettie.
Oh, damn it.
I'm sorry. I should not have said that. I did. I take that. It's me who should delete your channel, not you.
But Nitty, I think you're missing the big point is Jill doesn't care about that with you.
He just wants to attack.
Jill, he's there for a fight, and he's there for a certain type of fight. And it has nothing to so you can be as genuine as you like with him all day long.
Yeah.
But he's not there to be genuine with you, right?
He's not an honest interlocutor. Yeah, he's not.
Apparently
he's
not.
there to try to make you mad and.
But this made the 500 stream extra.
Right, it add a little spice.
It was special. It was really special. Well, it's about 3 hours, so I'm going to wrap it up, guys. I do apologize, but it's coming up to lunchtime for me.
Oh no,
I do get hangry, so sorry, Jill. That's my hanger. I'm very hungry. So
thanks for having us, Mark. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Oh, my pleasure.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much for showing up. Big shout out to Wilberforce.
Congratulations
Sean.
on the 500.
Oh, thank you, Leo. And
you'll probably hit 1,000 before I will, because I'll be at like 990 for the rest of my life.
Well, hey, I'm at 0, so.
I'm going to post in Leo's channel and Niddy's channel. Sean and Wilberforce, you don't have channels, do you?
No, not at the moment.
No, I just like watching you guys, and every now and then getting to show up on one of these things.
Yeah, you're more than welcome.
You
guys are more than welcome to pop in if you see me doing something. I'd love to have you on. And
by the way, I'd like to start doing.
Go on, Leo.
You'd like to start doing.
Nothing.
He's doing nothing. He's doing nothing.
I'd like to like every other Thursday. I want to start doing an open mic for 3 to 4 hours or something. Probably every other Thursday, starting at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. And I just wanted to let everybody know that if you see one of those go live and you'd like to join, you are more than welcome to. Much like I believe Nitty and I think Mark here, because I see the powered by StreamYard, I can only admit 6 people, but I think that's just fine.
Yeah. What time did you say it was?
7:00 p.m. Central Standard Time start.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you're central.
What is that? Oh, wow. All right.
Yeah, I don't know where you are in Australia, Mark, so I don't know how many. If you're 15 ahead of me or what?
I think 13.
What
Yeah,
time is
I've
it?
got some
10?
that are 15 and then some that are 13, so I don't really know where Mark falls there.
I'd probably
It's
be able to
almost
take some
11
of
o'clock
those.
here. What's everybody else got?
It is 9:44 p.m. where I am at.
Yeah, I'm at a quarter
Okay.
to 9. So
So
But yeah, if
7
you guys ever
a.m.
and if you ever
Yeah,
want to
that's
do
7
one-on-one
p.m. is
just
9 a.m.
hangouts
for me.
too, I'm up for doing those on my channel too.
Ooh.
Only if I can see the Lego collection, Denny.
Absolutely, yeah.
I
Bring
just
your own
want to play
Lego.
with them.
Yeah.
I've got tons I could do room tour type shit. Yeah.
Nitty and Leo, I don't think I am familiar with your channels, actually.
Oh, okay.
So,
well, the general, what started my channel was my deconversion from leaving a particularly culty, like evangelical church.
right.
So that was like its birth, and it's grown into one-on-one discussions, open rooms, and me having a late night nap on one occasion. So
there's Leo.
No, that was fine.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. So
I wanted to. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, and so I sometimes it doesn't really get too philosophical, and every once in a while I get on a rant about like some apologetics type thing that I can find, my own holes in it, but not all the time. And then yeah, I love having you guys on. Mark's appeared a couple times. I've had like Tux and Objectively Dan showed up at one point and hung out with me for a bit, and Captain Dadpool was on this last week. So yeah, I'm hoping to do more one-on-ones and hangouts, and maybe if my ex-church does some more weird shit, I'll be covering that because they do weird shit sometimes.
They are a church, so
I wanted to show you guys something really cool. I don't know if Mark will know about these. Maybe. I don't know exactly how popular they are.
I have no idea what that is.
Come on, my American friends. You know what these are. Tootsie Caramel Apple Pop.
I think one is still stuck to a tooth that I've lost.
Yeah, so. I just wanted to show you guys I'm about to mount. These are the greatest fucking suckers ever made. Okay? They just are. These are so fucking good.
Actually,
that was the first thing.
Leo, that's wrong. Jill is the greatest sucker ever made. Thank you.
No, I could be like, I don't know, Ben Shapiro or Matt Walsh or some other dumbass like that.
Yeah, they're up there for sure.
Jill, I didn't say that an intentional fallacy was meant to commit a fallacy. What I said is that like all fallacies are intentional in the sense that all fallacies could, in some sense, be related to the intention of the person committing it rather than, addressing the actual argument.
Well,
which is kind of the reason that it's a fallacy. Or at least an informal.
You guys deal with, or at least Leo and Mark have dealt with people like Jill on a regular basis. So how much of when Jill says something like that or throws that out, I always think of it like, so if you're sparring, right? Like they throw like a gut shot, or maybe
he's just trying to get
throws out a
reaction.
When he says fallacy, it's nothing more than he knows that's literally like throwing spikes on the ground to slow you down a little.
It's actually known as the fallacy.
That's
honestly,
fair enough, because I think most of what he does has nothing to do with it's terrible.
So
fucking. To be honest, the whole reason I brought up. Oh, sorry, Mark.
The reason why it can't be an intention fallacy is because we don't know who the authors are, so there's no possible way that we can strawman the author's intent, like analyze their intent. So Jill's just a complete idiot that doesn't know what he's talking about.
Oh, I don't think he has any idea that I'm saying literally he's come to a point to where he throws fallacy out like a what do you call the airplanes? What do they throw out when a missile's coming at them?
Chaff.
Chaff. Like literally, he's throwing out the word fallacy like a helicopter throws out chaff, and it's just like a big bright like a.
And then you have to,
right. You have to deal with that rather than exactly.
I would say he throws out the word fallacy like a combine harvester throws out chaff.
You're not wrong.
I'm from Iowa, so I had to throw that one in there.
Right,
Yeah,
then.
fair enough.
Is well-regulated
Thanks for having me.
militia the same
Congratulations.
kind of person?
I think he is. No, I think it's actually Jill on two accounts.
Oh, it's stock account.
It is. No, it is.
Yeah.
That yeah.
Yeah.
That's a Jill stock. I'm almost certain that's a Jill
I'm
stock.
not a lib. I don't even vote. Fuck.
That's a Jill sock. Unfortunately, it's not the, or I should say, fortunately, it's not the crusty, stinky one.
I just want to say that my favorite part of this night for you guys, this day for me, was Jill asking if I voted for Biden. I think that
that was brilliant.
That is
only with the Holy Spirit you did.
He thinks that a guy.
This man is a teacher. This man is a teacher. That is beautiful.
I just think it's funny
at
that
a private Christian school.
Somebody that literally says I'm a Marxist, he thinks is a liberal.
Right. Yeah. No.
Wow. That's
Oh,
no,
Jesus.
No.
That was the thing that cracked me up on that too. Like, you know, voting for Biden. I'm like, people on the actual left wouldn't vote for Biden. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, no. You know,
I don't know. I know I'm from Australia, but I just see that America's got two sort of rightish parties, just one way more than the other.
That's correct.
Yeah, we have right and far right.
One is corporatist, the other one is totalitarian.
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah.
Well, I thought the two comments that were my favorite was Nitty's fabrication comment.
That was good.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
That was very
pretty good pun. Yeah.
Like everybody can get off the internet now. It's over. We can go home.
And then Mark telling Jill, "Look, you didn't even say happy fucking celebration." Right, which was brilliant in the point of like, hey, like you literally like this is
Aren't you supposed to be some kind of Christian who wishes people well?
Oh, come on.
Some sort of seasoned apologist, this guy.
Yeah. Honestly, the whole reason I wanted to ask him about the, which translation is right is because I've heard him in a million debates about, slavery in the Bible, right? And it always comes back to, so many of these guys come back to, well, if you look at the original ancient Hebrew or the original Greek or whatever, and it's like, okay, that they don't know. And,
at all.
Yeah. So then nobody who isn't fluent in ancient Hebrew and ancient Greek can actually be a Christian.
Well, they haven't actually read the Bible as it was written.
Right.
But even the Bible as it was written, that you're reading it in ancient Greek, isn't the Bible as it was written because we don't have the originals, and that's the whole
exactly.
point. Anyway, I think that's a beautiful place to leave it. Thank you so much all for coming. Like, honestly, it's been fantastic. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
No,
thank you for having us on.
Oh, my pleasure.
And congrats, man.
Congrats. Thank you. And
it's well earned.
Oh, thank you so much. I really feel like it's it's fantastic to have you all on. I really appreciate it.
Just one more very quick thing before we go, if I may, just on Mark's behalf, from everybody in the stream and in the chat. Can I get a fucking
No. I'm 43. I don't do that stuff. But congratulations, Mark.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. It's been really great. Hope you've enjoyed it. Do hit a like for me if you want my subs to grow, I guess. If you want. If not, cool. All good. Do take care of yourself and each other. It's been spectacular. Thank you so much. And I will see you next time. I do have a debate coming up. Modern day debate on, I've forgotten the topic. Did God create the universe? That's okay.
Do you remember who you're...
I don't know. Some guy. I think he debated T-Jump last. Some dude. I don't remember.
Metaphysical theologian or something like that.
I can't remember. I don't know. I don't pay any attention.
Wait, I think I might know who you're talking about. The last debate that T-Jump had on that topic on Modern Day Debate. The guy that, like, towards the end, he just kept repeatedly calling a moron. T-Jump did.
Yeah. Ron
That guy was kind of douchey, but at the same time, I still think he did hold his composture a little bit better than T-Jump is. I'm not denying that he was a complete douche, but I know you'll perform better than T-Jump will, Mark. So I'm not concerned about that.
Well,
did I say that live? Not like I care.
No. But T-Jump did have a point. It's just, I think it just got into the weeds a bit. That's all. Like from both ends. I don't think it was like only one. But I get that T-Jump was angry because he was basically missing very elementary stuff. But I don't know. I don't condone.
Well, wait, T-Jump was? Of course he was.
No. The Ronnie Cameron or whatever.
Well, I think both of them were, so that's just me. Though. That's just me.
No worries. Well, do take care of yourself, each other, and I will see you next time.
Night, buddy.
You as well. Enjoy your lunch, my friend.
Yeah, we'll do.